then maybe he stays in the race. But if Biden stumbles in any of those appearances, then I think next week is the critical time when you will see, not publicly, but privately, the pressure build on him to leave gracefully for the sake of America, given the threat of Donald Trump.
The King has sent his and his family's heartfelt condolences to the people of the Caribbean following the death and destruction caused by Hurricane Beryl. It comes as Royal Navy warship HMS Trent is being deployed to the Cayman Islands to offer support. It's understood the offshore patrol vessel will arrive in the Cayman Islands this weekend, where crew will be ready to help communities affected by winds of more than 155 miles an hour. And at least 6 people have already been killed. The storm was expected to be close to major hurricane strength when it passed over Jamaica yesterday. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. Now we start with the news that we broke earlier this lunchtime. And former teacher Rebecca Joins has been jailed for 6.5 years after being convicted on 6 counts of engaging in sexual activity with a child. Well, GB News' North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper is at Manchester Crown Court. Sophie, welcome to the show. A case that's gripped the nation. Tell us more.
Well, this morning, the court heard a victim impact statement read out on behalf of boy B, whom Rebecca Joins had an 18-month-long sexual relationship with, starting while he was just 15 years old and a GCSE student at the Greater Manchester High School, where Rebecca Joins was his maths teacher. The statement recalled that boy B was still in love with his former teacher when he originally gave evidence. It said, "I struggled to come to terms with my abuse. I was in total denial. I felt as though I'd betrayed someone I loved when I was coerced and controlled, manipulated and sexually abused." Now, the pair began seeing one another whilst Joins was out on bail and suspended from her job for having sex with another 15-year-old pupil of hers, known in this case as boy A. Now, the jury in the original trial, which took place here at Manchester Crown Court in May, heard all these kind of details. So here's a quick reminder of the case.
You are under arrest at the moment on suspicion of sexual activity with a child.
A maths teacher at a school in Greater Manchester, Rebecca Joins was in a position of trust, a position of power. She chose to abuse that power. In May, a jury at Manchester Crown Court heard details of how she had groomed 2 teenage boys in her class. The first of which, boy A, she took shopping and bought him a belt worth £350. She then took him back to her flat where they had sex twice. Joins denied it, but his semen was later recovered from her bedsheets. The jury later heard that while suspended from her job, Joins then began a sexual relationship with another teen, boy B. She would go on to become pregnant with the 16-year-old. In a letter to the teenager, she said, "Every inch of you is perfect. You are all I ever dream about." The jury ultimately found Joins guilty on 6 counts of sexual activity with a child, 2 of which whilst in a position of power.
Rebecca Joins is a sexual predator. She was their teacher and they rightfully put their trust in her. But Joins decided to abuse her position and used it to groom 2 teenagers. We now wait for Joins to face the consequences of her actions.
Well, she has now faced those consequences, with Judge Kate Cornell sentencing her earlier on today to 6.5 years, telling her that she'd brought this on herself. Now, in response to this, Detective Constable Beth Alexander, who we heard speaking there from GMP's Child Protection Investigation Unit, had this to say: "Women can still be paedophiles. This term is not reserved only for men. Men and boys can still be victims of sexual abuse." Rebecca Joins Joynes abused her position of trust as a teacher and used it to manipulate and abuse two boys. It is completely incomprehensible the impact this has had on those young men and their families. School should be a place of safety for children.
The power divide irrespective, young boys also can be victims. Thanks for joining us there. Sophie Reaper live from Manchester Crown Court. Now, it's Independence Day in the United States, but Democrats and Joe Biden in particular don't really have much to celebrate because Biden's coming under increasing pressure to withdraw from the US presidential race after a simply terrible showing in last week's debate with Donald Trump. Biden's press secretary has said that he won't quit, though defiantly he will not quit. But if he doesn't impress in a TV interview tomorrow, it's understood that dozens of House Democrats are prepared to ask Joe Biden to step aside. And meanwhile, the Democrats have criticised Donald Trump after he was filmed criticising Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris.
How did I do with the debate the other night?
Oh, fantastic.
He kicked that old broken down pile of
Yeah.
It's a bad guy. He just quit, you know. He's quitting the race.
Is that right?
Yep, I got him out of the race. And that means we have Kamala. I think she's going to be better. She's so bad. She's so pathetic.
It's so amazing.
It's just so bad. So,
I just can't imagine.
but can you imagine that guy with dealing with Putin and the president of China, who's a fierce person? He's a fierce man, a very tough guy.
Well, there's lots to get our teeth stuck into there. And let's cross now to Washington, D.C. and speak to GB News' US correspondent, Steve Edginton. Steve, always a delight to have you on the show. Can we start with that video? So that video miraculously crops up at a key point where Joe Biden is on the ropes. He's desperately clinging on for his political life. And we have what appears to be an undercover sting. Of course, it's being weaponised by the Democrats as showing that we've hit a rock bottom. And yet, it doesn't seem to be having much of an impact. Steve Edginton, I wonder if the days of these undercover sting videos are over.
I think this undercover video, I mean, it doesn't look very professionally done. I suspect it was just a random punter or member of the public who released this video. And you're right, the Democrats are saying that Donald Trump, he's a very crass man. He uses very crass language. He swears. I think to most of the American public, that's already factored in. I think we know that Donald Trump is a crass man. I think many Republicans see this video, and Trump even put this out on his own social media channels on Truth Social. Republicans see this video as humanizing Trump. He's handing out money, a sort of tip to one of his golf, people who was helping with his golf. And, you know, he's criticizing President Biden, as you'd expect. He's criticizing Kamala Harris, who he thinks is going to be the next candidate up against him in this election in November. So I think the video doesn't reveal too much other than Donald Trump uses bad language sometimes, which I think, as I said, most of us already knew that.
Yeah, because, of course, they tried that "I'm going to grab you by the" in 2016, and that was a huge talking point. That didn't derail the Trump campaign. I suspect this one won't either. But back to the main event, Steve, if we could, and that is the precarious nature of Joe Biden's political career seems to be hanging by a thread. It looks like he's just got one or two chances left to actually prove he can be coherent for an hour in front of a camera. Is that really how bad it's got, that a president just has to prove he can talk to be able to stand?
It's been a very, very long week for President Biden. The fallout from the debate with Donald Trump cannot be overstated. The Democrats are in absolute chaos. You're getting leaks, you're getting briefings from Team Kamala, you're getting a report in the New York Times saying that President Biden even spoke with an advisor saying that he's considering quitting. This is vehemently denied by the White House officially. And as you say, President Biden, he has to prove, I think, to his Democratic colleagues that he is able to run this campaign, to be competent, to show to the American public that he is able to be president, that he's cognitively there. Because ultimately, what he's asking the public is, give me 4 more years. 4 more years. Just look at how he performed in that debate. And I think most people will look and think, I don't think he can do this for another 4 years, let alone another 7 months. So I think the Democrats really are in chaos this week.
Steve, the stakes are too high. This isn't a case of can you walk the line and rub your head while reciting poetry and I'll give you the car keys and you're allowed to drive home. This is the ruler of the free world. Is it really to the stage where he's being asked to perform like a puppy on TV to be able to stand? And more to the point, if he's not the ticket, who's going to take over? Kamala Harris is polling very badly. Michelle Obama has been wheeled out. Somebody's repeatedly said they've got no interest whatsoever in being the president, or at least the candidate to be president, and yet the Democrats seem to be pinning all of their hopes on the former First Lady.
It's a good question about who might replace Biden on the ticket. I think the Democrats have a real issue there. As you say, Kamala Harris, the vice president, usually the candidacy goes to them. They're sort of the next in line. But she polls so badly against Donald Trump. People see her as inauthentic. They see these odd clips of her talking in such strange language and such strange prose. She just seems very like an odd candidate. To many people. You also have Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. Now, he's very charismatic. He's almost the opposite to Kamala Harris in terms of his rhetoric. However, he has governed over a state which has serious problems. It's got problems with homelessness. It's got problems with crime. Many people are leaving California to go to Texas and other red states. So can it be Gavin Newsom? And as you say, the third person who's always talked about is Michelle Obama. Now, she has denied having ambitions in this area previously. But can we take that seriously? I don't know. I suspect everyone wants a shot at the presidency, especially someone who comes from such a political family. And she certainly polls the best against Donald Trump compared to the other Democratic candidates.
And yet, Steve Edgington, I've been talking to senior Republicans, and they want Joe Biden to remain in position. They want to go against him because his popularity is plummeting. 80% of Americans, I saw in a survey this week, fear for his mental well-being. He's not mentally nimble enough to be the president. So, bizarrely, the Trump team will want Biden to stay in place, won't they?
I think the Trump team definitely want Biden to stay in place. They see him as a weak candidate. They think they've knocked him out in that debate last week. I don't think that they should be so confident, though. Biden did win in 2020, and they can't underestimate how much many Americans dislike Donald Trump. He is a very divisive figure here in the United States. So people might see Biden as the lesser of two evils. However, after this very poor debate performance, it does look like his chances of becoming president again in November are very low. And I think that Donald Trump is confident. He won't be sentenced to prison potentially until September now, so he's got the whole of the summer to keep on the pressure. And we'll know very soon whether Biden will be the candidate. I know one major Trump supporter, very close to President Trump, told us yesterday that he doesn't think Biden is going to remain as the candidate through till this weekend. So I think the next few days are going to be absolutely crucial for the Democrats. It'd be really interesting to see what happens here in the US as well as the UK election today.
Steve Edgington, fascinating, and it's going to be so interesting all the way through now until how prophetic bonfire night of November the 5th. Thanks, Steve Edgington, for that update. As ever, I'll speak to you a little bit later in the show. We'll have lots more on this massive story throughout the show, of course, and there's plenty of coverage on our website, GBNews.com, which you've helped to make the fastest growing national news website in the country. So thank you very much. Now, brace yourselves, because it's time now for the Great British Giveaway, and it's an absolute whopper. There's a chance to win a massive £30,000 in cash, tax-free. It's our biggest prize to date, and here's how you could win the lot.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For a chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Almost 60,000 people have now signed a petition in protest of Prince Harry receiving an award in the United States. We'll find out more about that shortly. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan Tonight, weekends from 9 p.m.
As he turns 80 next month, Thomas Markle gives a moving interview to the Mail newspaper saying, "I've never been one for birthdays, but I know the one person I most want to hear from, Meghan, will not be in touch. I'd love to meet my grandchildren," he said, "but I'd be happy with a photograph at this stage." Well, for reaction to this sad story, I'm delighted to welcome US political and royal commentator Hilary Fordwich.
He also added that he never thought that he'd have something in common with the king. And of course, the king doesn't know his grandchildren either. And I think that's a very sad state of affairs. What is very important, the important thread here, though, is the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy of Meghan Markle claiming to care about people and all the tours they go on where they have empathy for people, and yet her very own father. And also, Mark, it really happened so fast. In 2016, she posted on Instagram that her daddy was the greatest in the world. And the other thing is that she claimed that she had made everything herself and she came from a very poor family. Actually, she had a very privileged childhood, being sent to private schools in California.
Well, poor old Thomas Markle, as he approaches his 80th birthday, is a serious thorn in the side and, frankly, an ongoing embarrassment to the couple.
Yes, and I think that one of the things that's immensely sad is that, Meghan Markle wasn't happy to be number 2 to Princess Catherine, and now she ends up being really nothing. I do think that a tiger doesn't change its stripes. What we have to look at here is track record. Somebody who's dumped her friends, dumped her own family, dumped her country originally when she came over to the UK, and even her adopted dog. There is a track record there, and Thomas Markle has sadly said it's referred to now as being Markled when you're dumped.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:25. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, a little bit later in the show, I'll ask an expert if we're finally going to get a heat wave later this month. Wouldn't it be nice? But before that, let's have a few of your says. Before the break, we talked about a video sting on Donald Trump, caught on camera saying disparaging things about Joe Biden. He called him broken down, Joe Biden, and then he turned his wrath onto Kamala Harris, the vice president, saying she was so bad. A couple of expletives thrown in there, as you'd imagine, and then he's dishing out $100 bills to a golf caddy. Now, his opponents have been saying this is a new low in American democracy, as you'd imagine, but you're not quite so convinced this is such a sting. Sue says this: Donald Trump knows exactly what he is saying. He's trying to wake up the sheep and let people know that Biden is not in charge of the United States of America. These complaints are so pathetic. We've heard it time and time again. It won't work. Sally adds this: as a widow of an American, I've lived in Texas through Donald Trump's presidency. I know he's great, and I'll be voting for him again, as will everybody I know in the Lone Star State. So there's a bit of support there for Donald Trump. We're expecting this one to roll on and on. Tomorrow night, Joe Biden there is due to have a major TV interview where he's expected to perform with a degree of cognitive ability we simply didn't see in the head-to-head debate with Donald Trump last week. People from even within the Democrat Party itself are saying they are in a scrambled panic mode. The New York Times, which has been in complete and utter denial of Joe Biden's clearly degenerating mind over the last 4 years. You look back at some of those TV debates from 2020 when Joe Biden was absolutely as sharp as a tack. He was on point. He was perfect on detail. He was firing back. Look at it side by side with Joe Biden's performance in 2024. And anybody could argue these are two very, very different men. A lot of Republicans that I speak to they're not taking glee from this. They're not especially happy about this. They think it's sad and they think it needs to end. Now let's move on to the latest on Prince Harry. Does it ever stop? And the backlash against the decision to give him a prestigious award for veterans is growing. Harry's in line to receive the Pat Tillman Award from American sports broadcaster ESPN for his work with the Invictus Games. But almost 60,000 people have now signed a petition calling on them to rethink their decision. Well, I'm now joined by the royal broadcaster and photographer Helena Chard. Helena, welcome to the show. Always a delight to have you on. Do you think they've got a point here? So Harry's been given this award for his work with the Invictus Games. It's an award in the honour of an American veteran, and the mother of that veteran in particular isn't happy that the Prince has been given the award. Tell us more.
I mean, goodness me. I mean, Mary Tillman, his mother, absolutely has the right to say what and think what she thinks. I mean, saying that Prince Harry is really a controversial and too much of a divisive person to have winning this award. I mean, I do completely agree. It's a strange one. You know, Invictus Games, yes, hurrah, isn't it fabulous? Healing through the power of sport. It's brilliant. But just to remember, you know, who is this? Who are the Invictus Games? The Invictus Games are about the veterans. It's not all about Prince Harry. You know, there's 60,000 signatures, I think, at the moment, defending this position, you know, this petition, Rethink. And I think absolutely, I mean, Prince Harry at the moment seems to be garnering so many different awards. I know this is a very American thing. And I'm sure actually that Harry and Meghan's PR have something to do with this. But, you know, how brilliant would it be if, you know, Prince Harry could say, great, I'm getting this award, but do you know what? It's not about me. It's about all these amazing veterans that do so much good, and maybe sort of get someone to, you know, give the award to some other great person. I just feel that Tillman, it's interesting learning about Tillman. I think here in the UK, we didn't know anything about him. He's huge in the States, absolutely huge, dedicated to service, completely unwavering service as well. And Prince Harry, as far as we see, well, a lot of us see in the UK, you know, he's walked off from his service. And now he's receiving all these different awards. I mean, what I would say is I do know that Prince Harry, you know, slightly perturbed by Prince William's Colonel-in-Chief of the Armed Air Corps. And he wants to keep that military association. So this is a very good way of doing that. But I absolutely understand how Mary, the mother, is upset by it, because, you know, why give it to Prince Harry? I really don't think he's served in the army. There are so many worthy people that would absolutely love to receive this award. I could go on about it, but I just don't think being gifted these awards, which I feel that Harry seems to be getting quite a few of, he doesn't seem to be doing too much for it. And to remember as well that the Invictus Games is all, you know, he got this idea from the Warrior Games in the States, and the royal family helped him set this up. He is not the nuts and bolts of it. There are so many people within that could receive it. And I can see how she is so sad, Mary, for her son's award just being given to Prince Harry. And Yeah, no, I feel really, really sorry. But you can see how ESPN are thinking, well, this is great because it's bums on seats, isn't it? And
Well,
to have a royal attend is kudos for them. So all around.
Helena, that's the point, isn't it? You know, they want the box office, they want to use the big name, but Pat Tillman's mother, Mary, quite simply says this should have gone to far more deserving veterans who do not have the money, the resources, the connections or the privilege that Prince Harry has. I feel that those types of individuals should be recognised. Helena Child, we have to leave it there.
Yes,
thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, thank you. We have to move on, Helena. Thank you very much. Now, there's loads more still to come between now and 4 o'clock. And we'll be with the England squad ahead of Saturday's Crunch Euro 2024 quarter-final with Switzerland. Of course, we still don't know whether or not Jude Bellingham will be banned for that game after his controversial gesture last weekend. And that'd be the last thing the Three Lions need. But first, it's your latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. It's 3:32. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. A security guard has been found guilty of masterminding a plot to kidnap, rape and murder Holly Willoughby. Chelmsford Crown Court heard Gavin Plum developed an obsession with the TV presenter and assembled an abduction kit to help carry out his attack. The 37-year-old previously told jurors that he is heartbroken, disgusted and shocked that his dark conversations had come out, but insisted the plot was a fantasy and not real. A former school teacher has been jailed for 6.5 years for engaging in sexual activity with a child. Rebecca Joins, who's 30, had sex with 2 teenage schoolboys after grooming them from the age of 15. She was on bail for one offence when she committed a second offence with another boy. A woman has admitted murdering her parents in June 2019. The bodies of John and Lois McCulloch were discovered by the police at their daughter's house after concerns were raised over their welfare. Virginia McCulloch, who's 36, pleaded guilty today before being remanded in custody. Polls are open across Britain as millions of people cast their votes to choose the next government. Voting stations will remain open until 10 o'clock tonight. But this is the first general election to require photo ID, and voters are being reminded to bring their driver's licence, passport or other ID, or risk being turned away. In the US, state governors who met with President Biden last night say he's fit for office and he has their backing. The president faced a grilling at the meeting of Democratic governors, which many saw as a test of his ongoing support within his party. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler. Polly Middlehurst will have your next update in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound value $1.2760 and 1.1812 euros. The price of gold is £1,849 and 57 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,242 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Sophia. Now, if you want to get in touch with us here at GB News, simply go to gbnews.com/your say, get in touch, and I'll read out the best of your messages a little later in the show. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. The rest of the day will stay windy across northern areas, a few showers still to come, but later we'll see some rain arriving into the southwest. That's because this string of weather fronts is arriving, and that's really going to take centre stage as we head into Friday. So Friday is looking a bit wetter for southern areas, but through the rest of this evening it should stay dry across eastern areas. The showers will tend to ease and the winds will die out a little, though it does remain breezy and pretty unsettled across the the far west of Scotland. Now, through the night, this area of rain will move into many southern counties, a lot of cloud with it and some fairly muggy air as well. So a fairly warm night tonight away from any clearer skies across parts of Northern Ireland and northern England. And here there will be some sunshine to start the day on Friday. And actually Friday will be a bit of a drier and brighter day for many northern areas compared to today at least. The winds will be a little bit lighter. Still quite a lot of cloud around for much of Scotland first thing tomorrow, but it should brighten up a little bit later on in the day. And much of Northern Ireland, northern areas of England, particularly northeastern England, could see a fairly bright start. Very different story though for central and southern areas. The rain will come and go through the day, particularly across the south coast, but the Midlands, parts of Mid Wales as well, could see some of that rain through the day. So this band of rain will wiggle and wave through the day. There will be some drier weather to be had though across northern areas of Wales, the northern slice of England as well. And in that sunshine, it won't feel too bad. The winds will be lighter tomorrow, as I said, and there'll be fewer showers across northwestern areas of Scotland, so highs into the higher teens across parts of eastern Scotland to come tomorrow. Looking ahead to Friday evening, after a slightly drier spell, some heavier rain will push into southwestern areas of England, South Wales, possibly the Midlands as well. That could take a little while to clear the east coast through Saturday morning, and then we're into sunshine and showers for the weekend. Temperatures still a little bit below par for the time of year.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon again. Hello, I'm Jules Buckley. The southbound M1, the entry slip coming on at Lofthouse. That's the M62 turn off junction 42. That remains closed off, that entry slip there. There's a medical emergency. There's a queue northbound for the M6 Middlewich 18, struggling up to Knutsford 19. A lane shut for a breakdown. Big delays for the M5 in Somerset. Now, the motorway remains closed both ways around Bridgewater. That's junction 23 to 24. There's a police incident. Congestion northbound back to Taunton at 25 and back towards the Sedgemoor services now on the southbound side. And the anti-clockwise M25 still slow in patches just away from the Clackett Lane services towards the M26 at 5, queuing back towards Godstone at junction 6, still seeing residual delays following an earlier collision there. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:38. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Later in the show, I'll look ahead to one of the biggest sporting events this Saturday. Wait for it. It's the Snail Racing World Championships. And yes, the man who starts the race does actually say, ready, steady, slow. Marvellous. Now, of course, most sports fans will probably be focusing on something else this weekend, something slightly more painful perhaps, and of course that's England's Euro 2024 quarter-final with Switzerland. Now, we're still waiting to find out whether Jude Bellingham will be available for this do-or-die fixture. His crude gesture after scoring against Slovakia last weekend is still being investigated by the football authorities. You can see that on your screen there. It was a hand gesture towards his crotch. Was it towards a friend, as he said, or was it something more sinister? That one hangs over the match still like a cloud. Now, England have been widely criticised for their performances so far, and some might say rightly so. They've had a very, very slow start to the tournament, and yet they're still joint favourites with the bookmakers to win the trophy. And the England defender John Stones had a simple answer when he was asked what England's aim for this tournament was.
To win. I think it's the biggest thrill for me and that I can get out of playing. You know, that winning feeling, to create history for us as a nation, you know, for everyone back home, me personally and the lads, to do something that's never been done before and lift this trophy. I kind of simplify it down into, you know, all those little things that I've just said, and trying to create our own history and make something happen. And that comes with all the trophies that I've won previously in my career, and trying to bring those attributes to the team, that hunger and the things that I spoke to you about before, the things that you can't really coach or learn. It's almost, you're just born with it, that come around. Winning a football game or going that extra yard to try and make this happen. That's the dream. That's the belief that I definitely have.
Well, the Three Lions certainly need to show some stones. They need to grow a pair and get stuck in, because we cannot be driven cuckoo against the Swiss. We were moments, 67 seconds away from disaster on Sunday. We got out of jail via a miracle bicycle kick by Jude Bellingham. Please, Gareth Southgate, can you stop giving us a collective heart attack and actually deliver this weekend? Thank you very much, those on behalf of England football fans, because it's fair to say it's been a terrible tournament. Now, those with long memories will remember Italia 90. We started terribly in that tournament, 0-0. We only got through with a miracle goal then, David Platt with that bicycle kick against Belgium. And then we changed. We played Gazamore, we brought Parker in at the back, and we changed the team. We changed the way we played, and the rest is history. It's time to do that again, Gareth Southgate. Please don't give us more of the same, because England's game against Switzerland is taking place in Dusseldorf, and we can cross there now and speak to sports broadcaster Chris Scudder. Chris, welcome to the show. You may have heard me there having a bit of a mini rant. I don't know if my heart can take much more of these ball draws, of these last-minute debacles of extra time, and please don't even mention the P word. Please tell me that Gareth Southgate is going to do something different, start with a different system, and actually get the world's best players to play football.
I think your wish might be granted, Martin. I'm hearing from training that's what they've been working on, different system. And, you know, it's probably only because of the suspension to Mark Gahey, who picked up that yellow card and can't play in this game. So England are so thin at the back that they're going to have to play with effectively fewer defenders and play with wing backs. So that kind of changes the whole dynamic. You're right. I mean, people have been clamouring for this change. I mean, I would say, to be honest, that it doesn't matter how we've played so far. There are so many teams that have won major tournaments by not playing well and getting better. The aim was to get through the group. They did that. And the good news is that England are in the quarterfinals, and they really haven't started playing yet. It's not a vindication of Gareth Southgate, but what I would say is he does stick by the big names. That's his raison d'etre, really. He knows that the big players, when the big moments come around, will deliver. And he's been vindicated, really, because, you know, Jude Bellingham scored twice, including that incredible bicycle kick. Harry Kane, for all the criticism he's got, has got 2 goals as well. And he thinks that you've got to have your best players on the field. You know, all these calls to drop them, it's not the right way. I'm being patient with Southgate because I think he's got a little bit of luck about him. The draws opened up for him, and to be honest, I think England will beat Switzerland at the weekend. It might go to extra time, might go to penalties even. But if you look at the head-to-head record going over the last 40-odd years, England have not lost to the Swiss a single time. 1981, I think, the last time. They will be very pragmatic. They play with 3 at the back as well. So if England do switch to that formation, that will help to negate that. Basically, any manager will tell you that if you've got better players than the opposition, you should beat them, and England have. So it's just a question of the players now feeling comfortable. We all know that Phil Foden plays in a great system under a great manager at Manchester City, and when he plays for England, he's playing under an inferior coach. I don't think anyone would dispute that, really. Jude Bellingham plays under Ancelotti at Real Madrid, you know, chalk and cheese really with Southgate. But, you know, it's international football. You know, managers don't get to work with players that often. If the players are comfortable, then they should deliver. And I'm optimistic about the rest of this tournament.
Well, Chris, it's one thing for armchair balls like me to be getting exasperated, but you're in Dusseldorf there. A lot of people have paid a heck of a lot of money, taking time off work to get out there. What's the mood on the ground amongst the faithful? Are they hanging on in there, or are they also kind of chewing their lips off?
Bit of everything, I think. I mean, those who have been here from the start, there are a few thousand of them will go right through to the end. I mean, tournaments are funny because a lot of people come out for the group stage because they know where they stand with work and everything, and they come out and they go home. And if the team gets through to the knockout stages, a lot of them will try and come back out. That's when the costs gets involved. I've been talking to the Football Supporters Association. They'll have representatives here over the next few days, and they're expecting about half of the capacity of the crowd to be England fans. The official allocation is only 7,000 England tickets, just under, but there'll be about 25,000 who have managed to get them to be inside. And then there are just behind me here is a fan park. It holds about 5,000 people. There are 3 of them here in Dusseldorf, and those who haven't got tickets, who come for the crack, the beer, and just being in the place. Should England go on to do great things, they'll be here on the streets having a good time. I spoke to one gentleman earlier on who's optimistic as well.
It's just it's been a long time since we won. I think we are due for winning something, to tell you the truth. I really think we're due for it. Been a long time.
It would be nice, wouldn't it? But need to improve
drastically. I'm just hoping that last week just gives them that boost, and we're hoping for something.
Agreed.
Yes, agreed.
All the way from Sheffield to Dusseldorf. There'll be lots more like him, and we've got everything crossed. But listen, Martin, don't worry. England are going to beat Switzerland at the weekend.
I always worry, Chris Scudder, but thank you very much for trying to mop my fever brow. Thanks for that update live from Dusseldorf. Now, Britain's greatest ever tennis player is about to begin his Wimbledon farewell. We'll get the latest on Andy Murray, who's playing in the men's doubles today with his brother Jamie. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back. Stefan Kyriazis has, as ever, been to the theatre and saw one of the most successful performers of the modern age, one who has made his name in different genres on television and is always a magnetic presence on the stage. About whom are we talking, Stefan?
We're talking about James Corden at the Old Vic for The Constituent and its Traverse staging. So audience on either side, and it's a fantastic experience. But also it's been done this time to bring everything in a lot and make it quite intimate, because you just have one simple set. It's just a table, office space. This is a new play by Joe Penhall, and it's addressing very, very current issues of safety, especially for people in public service. Doctors, nurses, teachers, and of course, as you know, politicians that are at risk and being attacked. So we have Joe Cox, Sir David Amess, and we have politicians talking about cancelling their surgeries, not wanting to appear in public, teachers being threatened. And James Corden plays an ex-serviceman who is going through a difficult divorce, dealing with a lot of PTSD, also feeling very much like fathers are overlooked, and he wants to fight for their rights. And an old school friend is a local MP, played by Anna Maxwell Martin. And he goes in to start talking to her, and it starts off quite chummy and jovial, and then it darkens and darkens. He gets quite aggressive and frustrated. She wants to help. She's an absolute idealist. This politician sense of we don't choose who we work for. You know, we are here by duty to work for everybody in our constituency. It spirals a lot. I have to say, Corden, sensational. Really? He really is a fantastic actor. Of all of them, he's so natural, and he has the most difficult role where his character is shifting all the time and becomes potentially quite threatening and dangerous, but then there's also a beautiful catharsis at the end.
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 4. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. I'll have the latest from the United States, where Donald Trump has been secretly filmed criticising Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But with all of Biden's problems, will it make a blind bit of difference? Now it's going to be an emotional day for Andy Murray today. Britain's greatest ever tennis player will team up with his brother Jamie in the men's doubles at Wimbledon. Now, Andy might have just 2 matches left in front of British fans. Our reporter Olivia Utley is at Wimbledon for us now. Olivia, welcome to the show. Well, what a moment for Andy Murray and what a moment for the fans. Tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely huge moment for Andy Murray, set to play at 6 o'clock tonight in the men's doubles with his brother Jamie. He was due to play in the men's singles as well, but very unfortunately he had to pull out because he just hasn't fully recovered from that spinal surgery he had just a few months ago. But that's not the only exciting thing happening in British tennis today. Right now in the court behind me, Harriet Dart and Katie Boulter, 2 English players, are playing each other, and it is as tight can be. Just when I last looked, it was 6-all in the final set of the match, with Katie taking the first and Harriet taking the second. Really, really tense game. Sounds really, really exciting. We are also due to see Cameron Norrie and Jack Draper play each other, another 2 Brits. I was actually at Wimbledon as a punter on Tuesday, and I watched Jack Draper manage to get through that final, that first round. He was looking in very, very good form. And also, as if that wasn't exciting enough, you've got Fernley, another Brit, playing Djokovic. And amazingly, Fernley has managed to take the 3rd set from Djokovic. So it is just possible that a Brit manages to knock world number 3 out of the championship. Djokovic is back only 3.5 weeks after having surgery on his knee. So a really, really exciting day for British tennis today. And of course, the wonderful ending moment of it all will be Andy Murray playing in those doubles tonight at 6 o'clock.
And the weather looks fantastic there, Olivia Utley. Mean, of course, no Sir Cliff Richard. What more could you wish for? Olivia Utley, thank you very much for joining us there live from Wimbledon. Now, I've got a couple of your emails, your says, before the end of this hour. The topic that's really got you going is Joe Biden and Donald Trump. An undercover video, a sting on Donald Trump, has caught your attention. David says this: why are Western leaders not standing up forcefully to ask Joe Biden to retire, take it easy, and enjoy the rest of the time he has left with his family? Surely he should not be resisting morally correct and justified requests to put the safety of the West in safer hands. And a quick one here on that video, that sting video. This is from Miriam. She says, another sting video. This seems to be the new normal in politics. It's pathetic to call this video racist or sexist. It's nonsense. This kind of attack doesn't work anymore. People can see it for what it is. He's a foul-mouthed bloke, sure, but who doesn't know that about Donald Trump? What you see is what you get, and he will get my vote. Now, Joe Biden's press secretary says he won't pull out of the race for the presidential race in America despite all of that. But he faces what's being billed as a crucial TV interview tomorrow that could make or break his hopes to take on Donald Trump again. It's a story that's gripping the world. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel. And now it's time for your weather, and it's Annie Shuttleman.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. The rest of the day will stay windy across northern areas, a few showers still to come, but later we'll see some rain arriving into the southwest. That's because this string of weather fronts is arriving, and that's really going to take centre stage as we head into Friday. So Friday is looking a bit wetter for southern areas, but through the rest of this evening it should stay dry across eastern areas. The showers will tend to ease and the winds will die out a little, though it does remain breezy and pretty unsettled across the far west of Scotland. Now, through the night, this area of rain will move into many southern counties, a lot of cloud with it and some fairly muggy air as well. So a fairly warm night tonight away from any clearer skies across parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England. And here there will be some sunshine to start the day on Friday. And actually Friday will be a bit of a drier and brighter day for many northern areas compared to today at least. The winds will be a little bit lighter. Still quite a lot of cloud around for much of Scotland first thing tomorrow, but it should brighten up a little bit later on in the day. And much of Northern Ireland, northern areas of England, particularly northeastern England, could see a fairly bright start. Very different story though for central and southern areas. The rain will come and go through the day, particularly across the south coast, but the Midlands, parts of Mid Wales as well, could see some of that rain through the day. So this band of rain will wiggle and wave through the day. There will be some drier weather to be had though across northern areas of Wales, the northern slice of England as well. And in that sunshine, it won't feel too bad. The winds will be lighter tomorrow, as I said, and there'll be fewer showers across northwestern areas of Scotland, so highs into the higher teens across parts of eastern Scotland to come tomorrow. Looking ahead to Friday evening, after a slightly drier spell, some heavier rain will push into southwestern areas of England, South Wales, possibly the Midlands as well. That could take a little while to clear the east coast through Saturday morning, and then we're into sunshine and showers for the weekend. Temperatures still a little bit below par for the time of year.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Jules Buckley. Let's go to the Highlands of Scotland firstly, where the A9 is part blocked. There's been a collision just by the Dunrobin Castle turn-off, causing delays in both directions. Now, the southbound M1 around the turn for Cargate, junction 41, a four-lane stretch. Lane 1's combed off as a broken-down car there gets recovered. Big queues and problems for the M5 in Somerset continue this afternoon. The motorway shut in both directions around Bridgewater, junction 23 to 24 for an ongoing police incident. The northbound queue is prior to Taunton Junction 25 southbound back towards the Sedgemoor services. And the eastbound side of the M4 into London at the...
OK, now let's go live to Chelmsford Crown Court, where Essex police are giving a statement after Gavin Plum was found guilty of masterminding the plots to kidnap, rape and murder Holly Willoughby.
Today, we're extremely grateful to our law enforcement colleagues in America, who not only brought Gavin Plum to our attention, but helped gather the vital evidence that secured his conviction. We'd also like to thank the victim, who's courageously supported this case throughout and bravely waived her anonymity. Today, Gavin Plum remains where he belongs, behind bars. At Essex Police, we will continue to do all we can to seek out those intent on causing harm to women and girls, and like this defendant, put them behind bars. There is simply no place for dangerous individuals like him on either the streets of Essex or wider society, and we'll do all we can to continue to make our community safe for all. Thank you.
And that was a short statement there from police at Chelmsford Crown Court, Magistrates Court, beg your pardon, and that was a statement on Gavin Plum, 37, the security guard who's just been jailed, found guilty for 6.5 years of soliciting the murder, rape and kidnap of Holly Willoughby after a 7-day trial. That short statement there said, thank you to our colleagues in America for bringing Mr Plum to our attention. A transatlantic joined-up action here, and they also commended the victim, and that, of course, is Miss Willoughby, saying she bravely waived her anonymity to make sure that justice was done and that no girl or child or person should be under threat like this in Essex, nor indeed in the country. And finally adding that Mr Plum is where he belongs, behind bars. That was a short statement there on the case of Holly Willoughby. Gavin Plum, 37 security guard, has been found guilty of soliciting the murder, rape and kidnap of Holly Willoughby. OK, now we're coming up to 4 o'clock and welcome back to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News. Let's kick off with our top story this hour. And Donald Trump has been hit by an undercover video sting where he laid into broken down Joe Biden and so bad Kamala Harris. Well, Biden's camp has slammed it as a new low for American politics and even democracy. But Donald Trump supporters are saying that their man is merely saying the quiet bit out loud. A former teacher who had sex with 2 underage schoolboys has been jailed for 6.5 years. Rebecca Joynes cried in the dock as the judge told her she'd exploited her privileged role for her own sexual gratification. And England take on Switzerland in the Euro quarter-finals this Saturday in a do-or-die fixture. Will the lacklustre Three Lions finally roar, or will Gareth Southgate's boys be the only thing that's once again coming home? And that's all coming up in your next hour. Welcome to the show. A slightly unusual show, of course, today because there's a general election. So because of broadcasting rules, we aren't allowed to talk about that. Aside from the fact, if you haven't yet voted like me, I'll be voting after the show. Make sure you take your photo identification, because without it, you'll be turned away, as I found to my peril and my ignorance at the last election, the mayoral election in London. Make sure you take your photo ID. I want to hear from you, all the usual ways, gbnews.com/your say. A lot of people have been getting in touch about this undercover video sting on Donald Trump. He was playing golf, handing out cash from his golf cart to a caddy. A few spicy words were exchanged about the state of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. We saw in 2016 an undercover sting. Do you remember when he was on a coach and talking disparagingly about women and what he'd like to do with them? That became a huge, huge media conversation. It didn't stop, however, Donald Trump being elected the first time round. I wonder if this one will meet a similar fate. Is it merely a deflection from the real issue, the fact that Joe Biden doesn't seem to be mentally competent enough to run the country? All of that coming up. But first, it's time for your latest news headlines, and it's Polly Middlehurst.
Martin, thank you, and good afternoon to you. Well, the top story from the GB newsroom today is that a security guard has been found guilty of masterminding a plot to kidnap, rape and murder the television presenter Holly Willoughby. Chelmsford Crown Court heard that Gavin Plum had been having graphic and highly sexualised conversations with others online about attacking her and other celebrities since December 2021. He told jurors that he was heartbroken, disgusted and shocked that his dark conversations had come out, but insisted the plot was a fantasy and not real. However, Nicola Rice from the Crown Prosecution Service says Plum posed a real threat to society.
He was more than just a fantasist, that he was planning and was in advance planning and wanted to carry out these attacks with the assistance of someone else. I think we were able to demonstrate by the evidence that we had more than just chat online. We had him getting together a kit which would enable him to carry out the kidnap. So he had shackles, handcuffs, rope, hundreds of cable ties, metal cable ties, and he had purchased the chloroform.
Well, in other news today, a former schoolteacher has been jailed for 6.5 years for engaging in sexual activity with a child. Rebecca Joynes, who was 30, had sex with 2 teenage schoolboys after grooming them from the age of 15. She was on bail for one offence when she committed a second offence with another boy with whom she had a child. The parents of both her victims watched as she broke down in tears while her sentence was read out at Manchester Crown Court. Now, a woman has admitted murdering her parents in June 2019. The bodies of John and Lois McCulloch were discovered by police at their daughter's house after concerns were raised over their welfare. Virginia McCulloch, who's 36, pleaded guilty today before being remanded in custody. Now, scientists are warning that people using the popular weight loss jab like Ozempic could be at higher risk of losing their sight. New research is suggesting that patients on the medication called semaglutide may be more susceptible to a condition that causes blindness. Those affected can suffer sudden loss of vision in one eye, but without any pain, which is often discovered when people wake up. As you've been hearing, polls are open across Britain today as millions of people cast their votes to choose the next government. Polling stations will stay open until 10 o'clock tonight, giving the chance to around 46 million eligible voters to have their say on who forms Britain's next government. But this is the first general election to require photo ID, and voters are being reminded to bring their driving licence, passport or ID, or risk being turned away. And in the United States election, President Biden will attempt to reassure key allies that he can win in November when he attends today's Independence Day events. President Biden will host a 4th of July barbecue at the White House. He's going to be addressing the families of veterans there. It comes after he met with state governors from the Democratic Party last night who say he is fit for office and he has their backing. Among them was the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who some see as alternative for the Democratic ticket. He's due to campaign on behalf of the president in Michigan, a critical state in Joe Biden's bid for re-election. Well, here the King and his family have sent their heartfelt condolences to the people of the Caribbean following the death and destruction caused by Hurricane Beryl. It comes as Royal Navy warship HMS Trent is being deployed to the Cayman Islands to offer support. It's understood the offshore patrol vessel will arrive this weekend, where crew will be ready to help communities affected by flooding and storm damage. The storm was expected to be close to major hurricane strength when it passed over Jamaica yesterday. At least 6 people have already been confirmed dead. Let's just bring you up to date with events at Wimbledon. And an all-British tie on court 1 today at Wimbledon has just concluded in a win for Harriet Dart. The women's number 2 won the closely fought match against women's number 1 Katie Boulter to book their place in the 3rd round. They'll be followed by Jack Draper, who takes on fellow Brit Cameron Norrie. And elsewhere, wildcard Jacob Fernley's pulled back a set against Novak Djokovic. That match currently 2-1. And later, 3-time Grand Slam champion Andy Murray begins his final campaign at the All England Club alongside his brother Jamie in the men's doubles. Those are the latest GB News headlines for you for now. I'm Polly Middlehurst. I'm back in half an hour. See you then.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Polly. Now, we start with the former teacher who's been jailed for 6.5 years after being convicted on 6 counts of engaging in sexual activity with a child. Rebecca Joins cried in the dock as the judge told she had brought this upon herself. GB News' North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper has the background to this case.
You are under arrest at the moment on suspicion of sexual activity with a child.
A maths teacher at a school in Greater Manchester, Rebecca Joins was in a position of trust, a position of power. She chose to abuse that power. In May, a jury at Manchester Crown Court heard details of how she had groomed 2 teenage boys in her class. The first of which, boy A, she took shopping and bought him a belt worth £350. She then took him back to her flat where they had sex twice. Joins denied it, but his semen was later recovered from her bedsheets. The jury later heard that while suspended from her job, Joins then began a sexual relationship with another teen, boy B. She would go on to become pregnant with the 16-year-old. In a letter to the teenager, she said, "Every inch of you is perfect. You are all I ever dream about." The jury ultimately found Joins guilty on 6 counts of sexual activity with a child, 2 of which whilst in a position of power.
Rebecca Joins is a sexual predator. She was their teacher and they rightfully put their trust in her. But Joins decided to abuse her position and used it to groom 2 teenagers. We now wait for Joins to face the consequences of her actions.
Sophie Reaper, GB News.
And now to the latest on Joe Biden. And while it's Independence Day in the United States, Democrats and Joe Biden in particular, well, they don't have very much to celebrate because Biden is coming under increasing pressure to withdraw from the US presidential race after a simply terrible showing in last week's TV debate with Donald Trump. Now, Biden's press secretary has said that he won't quit, but if he doesn't impress in a major TV interview tomorrow, then it's understood that dozens of House Democrats are prepared to ask Joe Biden to finally step aside. And meanwhile, the Democrats have criticised Donald Trump after he was filmed criticising Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris.
How did I do with the debate the other night?
Oh, fantastic.
He kicked that old broken down pile of yeah. It's a bad guy. He just quit, you know. He's quitting the race. Is that right? Yep, I got him out of the race. And that means we have Kamala. I think she's going to be better. She's so bad. She's so pathetic. It's so amazing. It's just so bad. So I just can't imagine. But can you imagine that guy dealing with Putin and the president of China, who's a fierce person? He's a fierce man. A very tough guy.
Well, it certainly raised eyebrows once again on both sides of the pond. Let's discuss it now by speaking to US political journalist Laurie Laird. Laurie, welcome to the show. Once again, Donald Trump is commanding the headlines. An undercover video film, because we can see there while he was playing golf. Donald Trump uses spicy language, shocker. Donald Trump speaks his mind, shocker. A lot of people are saying, Laurie, he's simply saying the quiet bits out loud, albeit in his characteristically fruity way. How's it gone down in America?
Well, look, I want to know why he was pocketing that cash. At the beginning of that clip, did you notice there was cash changing hands? He put some in his pocket. I want to know what that's about, actually, because you're right. Pretty language from Donald Trump. Not such a bulletin, but my gosh, with what's going on in the Democratic Party right now, with this, Biden's poor performance in the debate. See, what's going on there? You see that with he putting money in his pocket. But this Biden's poor performance in the debate is now a 7-day story, and it's only picking up steam, the speculation of will he step down. He says that he won't. We're getting faint praise from a lot of his allies, even James Clyburn in South Carolina, widely credited with delivering the African-American vote for Joe Biden in 2020, has talked about the prospect of a mini primary for a Democratic successor. I mean, this is one of Biden's closest allies. All Donald Trump has to do at this point is stay on the golf course and watch the Democrats tear themselves up.
Now, Laurie, as you'd imagine, the Biden-Harris camp have leapt on this. They've launched a statement accusing this of being a new low from Donald Trump. They've seen time and time again his disrespect for women, his disdain for black Americans, and his complete disregard for our democracy. This is Donald Trump hitting a new bottom, in particular criticising Vice President Harris, who made history as the first black and the first Asian American woman elected to the office by calling her pathetic. So, as you'd imagine, they're trying to maximise the currency from this. Is it landing with the voters, though? We saw, as I mentioned, in 2016, that undercover audio when he said, I'd like to grab women by the... And that didn't work in 2016. It caused a huge conversation. The people who hated Donald Trump clutched their pearls and didn't like him a little bit more. But it didn't affect his base. It didn't affect the mainstream. Do you think this one, likewise, it won't have the cataclysmic effect the Democrats would like?
Not a chance. And you know what? You've just said it yourself. If Donald Trump's boasting about sexually assaulting women, that tape that you mentioned came out right before the 2016 election. If that didn't do it, those comments that we just saw in the golf cart are probably not going to sway opinion at all. But, Donald Trump, one of the things that helped Donald Trump in the debate was that muted microphone. When the candidates stopped after they made their point, after they had their allocated time, the microphones were muted. And that was external discipline on Donald Trump. It didn't give him a chance to sort of ramble on in that sort of, using that toxic language that we have come to expect from him. That said, Donald Trump speaking unkindly about women, not really a bulletin. I don't think it's going to affect him at all.
And meanwhile, Laurie, this performance, this TV interview tomorrow night, I mean, literally the eyes of the world will be scrutinising every brain freeze, every sentence, every word. Is this a test you think that Joe Biden can miraculously leap to and perform? Or will this be, do you think, the final showdown? This could be the final performance for him.
And we're talking about this being make or break. But look, this is a pre-recorded interviewer. The interviewer is George Stephanopoulos, a longtime Democratic operative. This is not going to be a particularly rigorous interview, or at least I would be very surprised if it were. I'd be very surprised if some of the topics weren't discussed ahead of time. Again, it's a pre-record. I don't think that this will be anything like anything that's not unscripted, unstaged. And look, we're looking at Joe Biden right here. His campaign performances since the debate have been pretty good, but everybody's noted he's been speaking off an auto cue. He's not taking questions from reporters. While the Democratic Party and the Republicans would like to look at tomorrow as make or break, I don't think it's going to be a particularly difficult test for Joe Biden.
OK, Laurie Laird, thanks for joining us, as ever, giving us your insight. And
always
wow,
a pleasure.
And to you, we've got all the way until November to go on this bonfire, November the 5th. How fitting that's when that presidential race will take place. And we'll cross live to Washington, D.C. for more on this massive story at 5 o'clock. And there's plenty of coverage on our website, GBNews.com, which you've helped to make the fastest growing national news website in the country. So thank you very much. Now, it's day 18 and the search for missing British teenager Jay Slater. Forensic police in Tenerife are focusing now their efforts on an Airbnb property where the 19-year-old from Lancashire reportedly stayed before he vanished. The search has been called off, but the police are still trying to track Jay's movements. Let's cross now to Tenerife and speak to Joe Corley, who's a travel writer and the owner of the guide, myguidetenerife.com. Joe, welcome back to the show. There's been some significant developments overnight, a couple of new pieces of information coming forward. One about how should we put it, an unsavoury character, a drug dealer, and another one about a Rolex watch. Bring us up to date.
Yeah, the latest talk seems to be mainly about this Rolex watch that Jay apparently boasted to some friends about on the night he went missing, or the night he went to Masca. There's been no reports of any theft of a watch, but this seems to be the topic of conversation now, and speculating whether this was one of the reasons why he's gone missing. The police are finally doing some forensics on the Airbnb in Masca. Seems to a lot of people to be a little bit late in the day for that, as all the focus was on a search rather than any criminal investigation. But the search has now ended, as we all know, and so now they're approaching different ideas and leads.
And Joe, as you rightly said there, this case began, the missing persons case began at that Airbnb property. Two individuals that Jay was rumoured to be with, they were simply allowed to leave the country, and all the evidence they'd have been handling themselves. Of course, their telephones would have gone with them. And then on the basis of one lead saying he'd gone for this walk, the case then fanned out across the wilderness of Tenerife rather than this property. And now a full 2 weeks later, Joe, they go back to where they started. A lot of questions being asked about the priorities of the police in Tenerife.
Yeah, it's a big surprise for a lot of people. Now they seem to be doing a forensic check on this property. I think, from statements from members of the British police, obviously they said they would have done this differently. They would have opened an investigation, potentially criminal, from the very beginning. But we don't know how the Spanish police operate because it's a very kind of closed shop. They don't give very much away. They don't make public announcements or daily briefings. I know that the detectives, when they're reporting from any investigation, they have to pass the information to a court. And apparently the judge of this court has said that nothing has come in so far that warrants a criminal investigation. So there's a lot of kind of ambiguous news coming out at the moment. But yeah, the main thing is this seems surprising that now this kind of, the focus has switched to more of a forensic study.
OK, and what's the mood like amongst locals on the island? There's been a huge amount of international press interest in this. And here we are, not saying especially pleasant things about the authorities in Tenerife. Are the public there getting frustrated? This is taking so much bandwidth and perhaps even putting their island in a bad light.
I don't think frustration is the not as to the media coverage of this. I don't think that's particularly the frustration. The frustration is still about Jay's not being found. I think that's fair to say. There is some surprise, some shock that the way this is being approached now, like you said, over 2 weeks later. I think it's more in the way that the Spanish police have handled it. Big problem is, of course, that there are no briefings, and so that kind of creates a void, and people clamour for more knowledge because a lot of people are invested in this, and that void gets filled with speculation and any kind of conspiracy theories, which then, through online Chinese whispers, can become, to some people, fact, and then this starts spreading. So it's a strange and bizarre situation at the moment in many ways, and people are, like I said, jumping to conclusions now. We do really need some kind of official announcement of where we're up to with this.
And I wonder, Joe Cawley, if that will be a big learning from this case. I've been speaking to missing persons experts, Metropolitan Police, forensic experts back here in the United Kingdom now for weeks, and they're starting to say to me that in Britain there would have been daily press briefings with the police to keep everybody fully up to speed, appeals for evidence, more transparency on where we're at. Because, of course, Joe, if you have transparency, there's no vacuum to fill with the whodunits, with the armchair sleuths, and maybe that is an approach that the authorities in Tenerife should have taken.
Well, I hope that they do learn something from this, but whether they do, time will tell. But yeah, I think the police have complained about the noise behind this case, the online noise especially, for a week or so now. It said it's not helping, but maybe they have to realise that the online noise is there because there's no other noise, and people want to hear something. So yeah. Maybe and hopefully that something like this will be handled differently next time.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I spoke to Peter Blexley earlier on, a former Met copper, and he said, that the armchair sleuths initially were a problem, but actually they're the ones who've been digging away, putting this new information out there and forcing the police to take action. So he actually said, I'd like to apologise for my previous tough stance on that, because actually they've been the ones in many cases driving this case forward. Joe Cawley, thank you for joining us as ever on GB News live from Tenerife with a full and comprehensive update. Thank you very much. Now, coming up, we'll be discussing the backlash against what's been described as a regressive campaign featuring Team GB's Olympic rugby players, as you can see there, in their lingerie, which I think looks rather nice. But then, what do I know? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In World War I, 309 men from Britain and the Commonwealth never came home because they'd been shot at dawn. The majority were killed for desertion, cowardice and sleeping at post. Appearing at their court-martials and told they'd brought shame on their country, these men had no opportunity to defend themselves and were executed by a firing squad. The National Memorial Arboretum launched a fundraising campaign to restore the memorial, which has stood for more than 20 years.
Thank you to your viewers for their support for the fundraising campaign, and thanks to the generosity of so many people, we've been able to replace all 309 of the posts that represent those young men that were shot in the First World War. Restoration of this really precious memorial.
The centrepiece of the memorial is the young soldier, blindfolded and facing his execution. In September 1916, Private Harry Farr was ordered to the front. Already suffering from shell shock, he was overwhelmed and refused his orders. He was court-martialed, and in a trial lasting only 20 minutes, he was sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, he faced the firing squad without a blindfold. Janet Booth is Private Farr's granddaughter and was part of the public campaign to have those who were shot at dawn officially pardoned.
When I asked my gran, do you know where I could find Harry's grave? And she looked at my mother, and there was this sort of look between them, and then she said, Well, he hasn't got a grave because they didn't warrant, he deserved one because he was shot as a coward and had let his country down. We can come here as a family and pay our respects to him, and also for all the other families, it's somewhere to come and remember their loved ones.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's almost 4:26. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Time now for the Great British Giveaway, and it's a whopper. Your chance to win a massive £30,000 in tax-free cash. It's our biggest prize to date, and here's how you could win it.
£30,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours. It's our biggest cash prize of the year so far, and you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
You're joking. Really? Seriously, it's not a line, what is it?
Oh, flipping heck. Oh, dear.
Oh, my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock. Like I said, I've never won anything like this. That is absolutely fantastic.
Over the moon. Thank you.
For a chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now to a controversial new campaign from the underwear company Blue Bella. It says it's intended to show that girls can look muscular and strong as well as feeling feminine. Well, it involves some of Team GB's Olympic female rugby players, as you can see on screen there, wearing lingerie. But it's been widely criticised, with the legendary tennis player Martina Navratilova saying it's a regressive campaign. Well, join me now as the Director of Campaigns at Sex Matters, Fiona McInerney. Fiona, welcome to the show. So, feminism, pardon me for mansplaining, used to be my body, my choice. They've got their bodies, they've made a choice. Where's the problem?
Well, they're free to make that choice if they have made it. We don't really know for sure. But I think that the problem here is the message is not strong is beautiful, which is what they claim. The message is that almost naked is sexy. And that's a very unfortunate thing to associate with sport, where we know that women and girls already feel self-conscious about their bodies. Lots of girls give up sport in their teenage years because they feel self-conscious. And so it's really nonsense. It's quite insulting for this brand to tell us that they are promoting female sport, that this is empowering, that they're going to encourage women and girls into sport. I mean, telling the girls that they should parade around in sexy underwear is not going to encourage them into rugby or any other sport.
But I don't think they were forced to do it. Well, I mean, it's not like they were put at gunpoint and said, you must wear lingerie and do this. They presumably made the decision. They presumably were paid for it. I don't know. But they've got publicity. We're talking about it. They weren't forced into it. Again, I repeat my point. It's their decision. Isn't feminism about women being able to make their own choices? It might not be your choice. It might not be their critics' choice, but they've made a choice, and presumably they're happy with it. And on the basis of that, who are we to criticise them?
Yeah, you might say that, but I think feminism also is about discarding the old pressures on women and girls, that being feminine is what being a woman's about. And the idea that you have to display your body and prove that it's attractive and sexy is a really regressive idea. I would love to see these rugby players doing their training actually in their rugby kit. I mean, it's so ridiculous to put them out there throwing a ball around and jumping around practically naked. I think that it's the brand that's saying that this is empowering, and I say that's not empowering. That is adopting a convention that feminism has tried to free women from, the convention that you have to be sexy and you have to be, frankly, you have to be half naked. So yes, they're free to make that choice, but I certainly am not going to endorse it as a progressive or an empowering choice.
But feminism used to be about burning your bras. They're showing their bras off, and they have a diverse range of bodies. They're not glamour models. They have bodies there with very diverse, very good bodies. They've decided to show them off. When it was the calendar girls, that was celebrated. Oh, yeah, you're taking control. You're not bowing down to conventions. What's the difference with this? They're taking control of their bodies. They're choosing to do what they want.
Have you seen a group of sportsmen posing semi-naked like this in sexy underwear?
Yes, David Beckham with his golden balls. That was over billboards the whole size of New York. Ronaldo did the same. Loads of blokes do the same, and that's a good bit of fun. Where's the difference?
Well, they can have that bit of fun. The difference is that women have long been pressurized to perform for men in terms of how they look, trying to be attractive, trying to be the right size and shape and everything else. And sport is not about that. Sport is about physicality. It's about skill. It's about fitness. It's about how you feel. And so it's a shame to take terrific, successful, sporty women and just show them as if what they're about is that regressive idea of womanhood as being pretty and sexy and half naked.
What about if these women thought, you know, I've got an amazing body. I'm proud of my body. I like wearing lingerie. I don't want to perform to the convention of rugby players who are women being big and butch. I want to show us a different light. That's my choice. You know, put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Yeah, and they're free to do that. But I think it's then completely disingenuous to say that that's going to encourage young women into rugby. You know, young women are under enough pressures already in terms of looking right, being well groomed, all of those things. It would be lovely to see these women be role models to say, you don't have to show off your body. You don't have to pose half naked like a model used to do. You actually can look great and feel great in your rugby kit. That's what I'd like to see. And if they really claim to be inspiring girls, that's what they should be doing.
Well, they look great in all forms of kit, if you ask me. But what do I know? I'm a regressive, sexual, dinosaur, no doubt. Thank you very much, Director of Campaigns at Sex Matters, Fiona McInerney. Always great, fabulous little debate there. Now, there's lots more still to come between now and 4 o'clock, and we'll hear from the England squad ahead of Saturday's Crunch Euro 2024 quarter-final with Switzerland. Of course, we still don't know whether Jude Bellingham will make it because he might get banned. But first, it's your headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
The headlines this hour: security guard who planned to kidnap and murder Holly Willoughby has been found guilty. The judge found that Gavin Plum masterminded the plot to kidnap the television presenter. The 37-year-old previously told jurors that he was heartbroken, disgusted and shocked that his conversations had come out, but insisted the plot was a fantasy. He's due to be sentenced on the 12th of July. Meanwhile, a former schoolteacher has been jailed for 6.5 years for engaging in sexual activity with a child. Rebecca Joynes, who's 30, had sex with 2 teenage schoolboys after grooming them from the age of 15. She was on bail for one offence when she committed a second with another boy with whom she had a child. And a woman has admitted murdering both her parents, who were aged in their mid-70s. The bodies of John and Lois McCulloch were discovered by police at their daughter's house after concerns were raised for their welfare. Virginia McCulloch, who's 36, pleaded guilty today before being remanded in custody. And polls, of course, open across Britain today for the general election as millions of people cast their votes to choose the next government. Voting stations remaining open till 10 tonight. But this is the first general election to require photo ID, and voters are reminded to bring a driver's licence, a passport or other photo ID, or risk being turned away. In the United States, President Biden will attempt to reassure key allies that he can win November's election there when he attends today's Independence Day events. It comes after he met with state governors from his party last night who say he is fit for office and he has Democratic backing. Those are the latest news headlines for now. I'm Polly Middlehurst. I'll have more for you in half an hour. See you then.
Thank you very much, Polly. Now, if you want to get in touch with us here at GB News, then simply go to gbnews.com/your say, and I'll read out the best of your messages a little later in the show. The football has really got you going. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. The rest of the day will stay windy across northern areas, a few showers still to come, but later we'll see some rain arriving into the southwest. That's because this string of weather fronts is arriving, and that's really going to take centre stage as we head into Friday. So Friday is looking a bit wetter for southern areas, but through the rest of this evening it should stay dry across eastern areas. The showers will tend to ease and the winds will die out a little, though it does remain breezy and pretty unsettled across the far west of Scotland. Now, through the night, this area of rain will move into many southern counties, a lot of cloud with it and some fairly muggy air as well. So a fairly warm night tonight away from any clearer skies across parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England. And here there will be some sunshine to start the day on Friday. And actually Friday will be a bit of a drier and brighter day for many northern areas compared to today at least. The winds will be a little bit lighter. Still quite a lot of cloud around for much of Scotland first thing tomorrow, but it should brighten up a little bit later on in the day. And much of Northern Ireland, northern areas of England, particularly northeastern England, could see a fairly bright start. A very different story though for central and southern areas. The rain will come and go through the day, particularly across the south coast, but the Midlands, parts of Mid Wales as well, could see some of that rain through the day. So this band of rain will wiggle and wave through the day. There will be some drier weather to be had though across northern areas of Wales, the northern slice of England as well. And in that sunshine, it won't feel too bad. The winds will be lighter tomorrow, as I said, and there'll be fewer showers across northwestern areas of Scotland, so highs into the higher teens across parts of eastern Scotland to come tomorrow. Looking ahead to Friday evening, after a slightly drier spell, some heavier rain will push into southwestern areas of England, South Wales, possibly the Midlands as well. That could take a little while to clear the east coast through Saturday morning, and then we're into sunshine and showers for the weekend. Temperatures still a little bit below par for the time of year.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon to you. Hello again, I'm Jules Buckley. There's a couple of issues on the southbound M1, a couple of breakdowns in Yorkshire to make you aware of. Now, firstly, lane 1's combed off around Cargate Junction 41. That one's a broken down car causing queues. And then southbound just before Meadowhall Junction 34, there's a queue back to Rotherham at 35. Again, lane 1's combed off, a broken down coach, this time being recovered. Big issues for Somerset. The M5 continue this afternoon. The motorway shut in both directions around Bridgewater. That's Junction 23 to 24 for an ongoing police incident. The northbound queue back prior to Taunton at 25. Southbound the queue back towards the Sedgemoor services. And in Hamworth in London, the eastbound side of the Chertsey Road is shut between Apex Corner through towards the Hospital Bridge roundabout in Twickenham. We're seeing queues for emergency services dealing with an issue.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:38. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, later in the show, I'll tell you why more than 60,000 people have signed an angry petition protesting against the decision to give Prince Harry a top award in the United States. But before that, let's move on to England's simply massive Euro 2024 quarter-final with Switzerland on Saturday. Now, we're still waiting to find out whether Jude Bellingham, our star player, the hero, the last-minute hero on Sunday, will be available for this crunch game. His crude gesture after scoring against Slovakia last weekend is still being investigated by the footballing authorities. England have been widely criticised for their performances so far, some say with good reason, but they're still joint favourites with the bookmakers to lift the trophy. And defender John Stones had a simple answer when he was asked what England's aim for the tournament was.
To win. I think it's the biggest thrill for me and that I can get out of playing, you know, that winning feeling, to create history for us as a nation, you know, for everyone back home, me personally and the lads. to do something that's never been done before and lift this trophy. I kind of simplify it down into, you know, all those little things that I've just said, and trying to create our own history and make something happen. And that comes with all the trophies that I've won previously in my career, and trying to bring those attributes to the team, that hunger, and the things that I spoke to you about before, the things that you can't really coach or learn. It's almost, you're just born with it, that come around winning a football game or going that extra yard to try and make this happen. That's the dream. That's the belief that I definitely have.
Well, John Stones there with all the energy of Gareth Southgate by the sound of him. And England's game against Switzerland is taking place in Dusseldorf. And we can cross there now and speak to sports broadcaster Chris Scudder. Chris, you're there at Ground Zero. Heaven knows those of us in pubs watching this in England are almost having heart palpitations at the very prospect of playing the same kind of football again. Chris, we need a change. We need it fast. Are we going to get it?
I think we will, Martin. Yeah, you're giving them far too hard a time, by the way, there, your comments. I think, you know, the players really want this. It's easy to say, oh, you know, they're earning millions as Premier League players and they come here and they don't care. They do care. And, you know, 58 years since 1966, so long ago now that we've almost stopped, you know, remembering when it was. But, you know, the one thing that Gareth Southgate has done, he gets so criticised about, you know, his abilities as a tactician. I think that's a fair comment. But what he has done has brought a harmony to these players. You remember the last golden generation. You look at the team that should have won the Euros in 2004, the tournament when they lost to Portugal again on penalties, and Wayne Rooney and the metatarsal and all that kind of thing. That was an incredible team. But one thing they admitted years later, you know, when they're sitting around a table, people like Rio Ferdinand and Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard, they admitted that there were cliques in the team. That has not happened now. If it's one good thing that Southgate has done, it is to bring that kind of harmony and bring all the players together. And that is a very important thing for England, because, you know, without that, they're given the way they've been playing, it's all going to fall apart at the weekend. I've got a feeling, you know, don't shout at me for this. I think, you know, England have got so far without playing well, that to be in the quarterfinals without having hit top gear is a very encouraging sign. And I think there will be changes at the weekend because of the suspension to Mark Gahey, and that will probably mean playing with wing backs. And it's just a question, really, of whether any of the stars get dropped. Speaking to a lot of the Europeans here, they respect England, but they all say the same thing. They try and cram in all the top players. They've seen England do it before, and maybe one or two do need to be left out. Southgate doesn't normally do that. He's stuck by Kane, he's stuck by Bellingham, and look what they've done. They delivered those 2 goals apiece in the tournament. But I just wonder whether Foden might be left out for this one. I just wonder, because, you know, he does occupy the same space as Bellingham and Kane as well at times. And it might just free up room for some others, some width, and that might make all the difference for England.
Chris, it's fair to say, look at the way Switzerland played against Italy at the weekend. They were superb. They were organised, they pressed, they were aggressive, they didn't show any fear whatsoever against a much bigger name, at least on paper. OK, Italy are out of sorts. And that surely comes from how they're organised, how they're mobilised. And isn't that the difference? We've undeniably got the individual talent, we've got the ability, but we just don't seem to have gelled. And without just criticising Gareth Southgate, that has been an historic issue. We saw with Bobby Robson in Italia 90 at the group stage, underperforming, and then the miracle happened, and then Gaza came in, we changed the system. Can we do the same again? I'm trying to be optimistic, Chris, and I know you're trying your best, and I know I'm being a misery guts here. I want to win, I want to have a great time, but can they do it?
Yeah, they can do it. Let's go back to the Euros final in 2021. yes, Gareth Southgate has made mistakes by sitting back. We've seen it happen a few times in big matches. But they did change it for the final against Italy in 2021. They played with 3 at the back then. I think, to be fair to all the smaller nations here, they are closing the gap, if you like. It's because of the tactical evolution of football, what they call the gegenpress, the high press. They all play the same way. They don't give the big teams a moment's rest. They pushing. So they don't give them the space to play. England are supposed to do the same, but they haven't. And I think, that there's when you've got superior ability, that's not being arrogant. When you've got superior players, I think psychologically the collective feel that they could just do enough to get past the opposition, and that's happened so far for England. And with all respect to Switzerland, they haven't beaten England since 1981, I think. England have played them, I think, 23 times, and England have won 17 of those. I'm sure it'll be physical because they've got players like Granit Xhaka, who used to play for Arsenal, Premier League players. But, man for man, make no mistake, England are way better in personnel. And if they can match them physically and just tweak this system, because, Southgate does want to get his start in it. It's a natural thing, I mean, you would, wouldn't you, really? But they're all top pros. They should be able to play together. I just have this worry about, so far, Bellingham, and he's a wonderful player. I'm a Birmingham fan. I've watched him since he was 16. Incredible. He's just got this incredible presence and aura. I heard somebody on the radio earlier saying you should drop him. No way. It's not going to happen. Kane won't be dropped either. Foden might be, I think. But, let's have that collective desire. There's going to be a lot of England fans here. They're starting to arrive now. I've just been walking along the Rye. It's a very windy day here today. There's going to be 30,000 England fans, at least, I would think, around. Half of those, more than half of those will be in the stadium. I'm optimistic. I think it'll be their best performance so far will come at the weekend.
OK, Chris Scudder, once again, I love your optimism. I fear, though, the Swiss might send us cuckoo. Chris Scudder, live from Dusseldorf, always a pleasure to have your company. Now, the weather this summer has been absolutely rubbish so far, hasn't it? But could, at last, please, let's pray, might we get a heat wave? I'm about to ask an expert just that question. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Prince Harry, he's been opening up about the death of his mother, Princess Diana, while speaking to the founder of armed forces charity, Scotty's Little Soldiers.
Well, the Duke of Sussex joined 50 children who were being supported by the charity and urged youngsters to open up about their grief, saying, if you suppress it forever, it will eat you away inside.
Well, let's speak to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, who joins us in the studio. Cameron, Prince Harry has spoken quite a lot about grief and bereavement from his mother's passing and the trauma he had. Did he say anything new that we haven't heard before?
And the difference here was, instead of kind of talking about himself, which clearly we've heard a lot of in the last 3 years from Prince Harry with his memoir Spare and the Netflix series, I could go on, he was putting the spotlight back on the charity and on Nikki and her story. So it was almost like having the old Prince Harry back, and also thinking about what could have been if he didn't step back as a working member of the royal family.
That's so fascinating. In many ways, he was sort of stepping into his old role in this. It was sort of performing a duty that he would have done back before the days of Megxit.
It is kind of like before the days of Megxit. He's been heavily involved in the charity for a good decade now, but when he came back for the Invictus Games celebration commemorations of the 10 years of Invictus last month, he spent time with 50 or so children, and he talks about how first instinct of a child when they lose a parent in awful circumstances such as that is, I have to be really sad for the rest of my life. And he talks about how those children who've lost parents through conflict feel like that, and how actually it's OK to be happy again later on in life when you've had the support, and realising that the parent you've lost would want you to be happy later on. So that's the message Prince Harry was trying to get across here.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 5. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now at 5 o'clock, I'll cross live to the United States, where Donald Trump has been secretly filmed criticising Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But with all of Biden's problems, will it make the blindest bit of difference? Now, it's fair to say that we've not had a great summer so far, but is this, please, about to change? It's been reported today that a heat wave could finally arrive in the middle of this month, with temperatures hitting 29 degrees in some parts of the UK. Well, I'm joined now by Jim Dale, who's a senior meteorologist at British Weather Services and a very good friend of the show. Jim, we had the wettest spring since the days of Noah's Ark. My lawn's up to me elbows. I can't get any towels dry in the house. I'm too tight to put my heating on. Please, can you have a word with the weather gods and bring us a heat wave?
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? We've been waiting a long time. We did have 2 days, if you remember. We had 2 30-degree days a couple of weeks ago, and that was about it. The good news is we're not quite halfway through summer yet, so there's plenty of time to come. And I always see now September as being an added month to summer. It's been that way now for the past decade, where it extends to a certain degree. So you're talking about later this month. Well, I'll give you the reasons why we're in what we're in at the moment. We are stuck in a rut. There's no doubt about that. The heat dome is all over southern, central and eastern Europe, into Russia even. So we've been caught in this trap ourselves, the Low Countries, Germany as well. We've probably seen the weather that's occurred across the Euro nations matches. We're going to stay that way for the next 10 days. I don't see a break yet, Martin, but what I do see is an expectation that we will get there eventually, just as a matter of course, the fact we've been in this kind of ropey weather. And by the way, get this one, it's snowing in the Highlands today. It's July and it's snowing in the Highlands, which is kind of unprecedented in a way. The last time I remember thinking about snow in July, and it was Buxton Cricket Ground a few centuries ago, it seems. But nonetheless, that's where we are at this moment in this returning polar maritime airstream. So I'm hopeful that we will get there. The charts do suggest a little bit of a switch change. So I think with time, temperatures will start to move up. We'll get rid of the Arctic air that we've got at this moment in time. So things can only get better. I think somebody said that once, and I think that's the direction of travel.
And the funny thing about this, Jim, it's just been so stubborn. It just seems to have been just stuck in this rut, and it just won't move on. It's like, come on, just clear off.
Well, that's exactly what ruts do. You get stuck in them. It's hard to pull out of that. And with the heat dome where it is, it's even more difficult. So we get our stuck in the mud, if you like, and they get their heat wave and wildfires as occurring in parts of Greece at this moment in time. And if you go across America, huge heat dome there, by the way, on the western side into California, more wildfires there even. Yeah, you're showing the pictures now. So, you know, we're slightly isolated, ourselves, Ireland, the Low Countries, and the other parts I've already mentioned. But I do think in the end, it will break. It's just a matter of course. But some of this is down to pot luck. You know, and at the moment, not that we necessarily want what's being shown. I'm sure we don't want that. We don't want 40-degree heat either. By the way, Las Vegas, potentially 15 degrees in these next 2 days. Record temperatures over that side. So, yeah, it's kind of horses for courses. Maybe some look out the window and say, OK, I'll take that rather than 40 degrees. So bear it up for the next 10 days or so. I think we'll eventually get out of it, and the latter part of July probably will deliver.
OK, Jim Dale, thank you for giving us that ray of hope. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Now, Joe Biden's press secretary says he will not pull out of the race to win November's presidential election, but he faces what's being called a crucial TV interview tomorrow that could make or break his hopes to take on Donald Trump again. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel. Now it's your weather. Let's have some good stuff with Annie Shuttleworth.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. The rest of the day will stay windy across northern areas, a few showers still to come, but later we'll see some rain arriving into the southwest. That's because this string of weather fronts is arriving, and that's really going to take centre stage as we head into Friday. So Friday is looking a bit wetter for southern areas, but through the rest of this evening it should stay dry across eastern areas. The showers will tend to ease and the winds will die out a little, though it does remain breezy and pretty unsettled across the far west of Scotland. Now, through the night, this area of rain will move into many southern counties, a lot of cloud with it and some fairly muggy air as well. So a fairly warm night tonight away from any clearer skies across parts of Northern Ireland and northern England. And here there will be some sunshine to start the day on Friday. And actually Friday will be a bit of a drier and brighter day for many northern areas compared to today at least. The winds will be a little bit lighter. Still quite a lot of cloud around for much of Scotland first thing tomorrow, but it should brighten up a little bit later on in the day. And much of Northern Ireland, northern areas of England, particularly northeastern England, could see a fairly bright start. A very different story though for central and southern areas. The rain will come and go through the day, particularly across the south coast, but the Midlands, parts of Mid Wales as well, could see some of that rain through the day. So this band of rain will wiggle and wave through the day. There will be some drier weather to be had though across northern areas of Wales, northern slice of England as well. And in that sunshine, it won't feel too bad. The winds will be lighter tomorrow, as I said, and there'll be fewer showers across northwestern areas of Scotland, so highs into the higher teens across parts of eastern Scotland to come tomorrow. Looking ahead to Friday evening, after a slightly drier spell, some heavier rain will push into southwestern areas of England, South Wales, possibly the Midlands as well. That could take a little while to clear the east coast through Saturday morning, and then we're into sunshine and showers for the weekend. Temperatures still a little bit below par for the time of year.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Jules Buckley. South Yorkshire, southbound M1, just after junction 31. That's the turn off for Sheffield. There's a breakdown blocking a lane and it's still causing delays. The northbound M6, Castle Bromwich at 5, up towards Spaghetti Junction at 6. Now there's queues for a broken down lorry. 2 lanes are combed off, slow going. All the traffic is being held at the moment on the southbound M42 between Tamworth at 10 and Coleshill at junction 9. An obstruction on the road means the traffic queuing and not moving at the moment. It's moving now on the M5 in Somerset, all lanes open but very slow either side of Bridgewater, junction 24 and 23. And the anti-clockwise side of the M25, just after junction 6 for Godstone, there's lane closures in place for roadworks. We're seeing queues back towards Reigate at junction 8. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For a chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hey! This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News.
Britain's election channel.
A very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News. Coming up in this hour, Donald Trump has been hit by an undercover video sting where he lay into broken down Joe Biden and so bad Kamala Harris. Now, Joe Biden's camp has slammed it as a new low, even for Donald Trump. But Trump supporters are saying simply that their man is merely saying the quiet bit out loud. A former teacher who had sex with 2 teenage schoolboys has been jailed for 6.5 years. Rebecca Joynes cried in the dock as the judges told her that she'd exploited her privileged role for her own sexual gratification. And Prince Harry has been nominated for a prestigious award, but it's not gone down well with everyone, including the mother of the serviceman the award was named after. Over 60,000 people have now signed a petition protesting against the decision. And brace yourselves, because it's the snail racing World Championships this weekend, where the world's mightiest mollusks head to Norfolk. We'll have all the latest on life in the slow lane. That's all coming up in your next hour. Well, it's a show now. You'll notice we've got a bit of a different show today. There's a general election on, and for broadcasting rules, we're not allowed to talk about that. Other than, if you haven't yet voted, please don't forget your photo ID, like I did at the mayoral elections. They'll make you go home. You need to have your ID. But we can talk about politics on the other side of the Atlantic. And, of course, we're starting with the latest on Joe Biden. While it's Independence Day in the United States, Democrats, and particularly Joe Biden, well, they don't have much to celebrate at all. Because Joe Biden is coming under increasing pressure to withdraw from the US presidential race after a simply terrible showing in last week's live TV debate with Donald Trump. Joe Biden's press secretary has said that he will not be quitting the presidential race, but if he doesn't impress in a major TV interview scheduled for tomorrow, then it's understood that dozens of House Democrats are prepared to ask Joe Biden to dramatically step aside. Now, meanwhile, the Democrats have criticised Donald Trump after he was filmed criticising Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris.
How did I do with the debate the other night?
Oh, amazing.
Kicked that old broken down pile of
Yeah.
It's a bad guy. He just quit, you know. He's quitting the race.
Is that right?
Yep, I got him out of the race. And that means we have Kamala. I think she's going to be better. She's so bad. She's so pathetic.
It's so amazing.
It's just so bad. So I just can't imagine. But can you imagine that guy with dealing with Putin and the president of China, who's a fierce person? He's a fierce man. A very tough guy.
Well, it's not the first time, of course, that Donald Trump has been filmed making fruity comments undercover. And let's cross now to Washington, D.C. and speak to GB News' US correspondent, Steve Edgington. Steve, welcome back to the show. Lots to discuss. That side of the Atlantic. We can't, of course, talk about British politics today, so thank heavens, the gift that keeps giving, Donald Trump. Let's start, if we could, with that video. Donald Trump speaks with fruity language, shocker. Donald Trump speaks his mind, shocker. This is being weaponised by the Democrats as a new low, as racist, as misogynistic, as sexist. Of course. The big question is, Steve, is any of that landing with the electorate, or do they see this for what it is?
I suspect that it's not landing with the electorate. I think that Donald Trump's crass language is baked into many Americans' minds. People have this image of him not as being this saint-like figure. I think we've seen lots of videos of Trump covertly being recorded saying rather nasty things. In this case, it seemed quite mild to me, the language. Okay, he had some swear words, but he wasn't particularly nasty. He was just saying that Kamala Harris would be a good opponent for him to go up against, and that he doesn't like her very much. And I don't think that that should be a shock to anyone. So certainly this video is going viral around the United States. On the other side of things, people are saying it humanizes Trump. It makes him look quite normal. It's quite an interesting insight into Trump when he's not speaking, when he's not doing interviews, when he's not on the rallies. So certainly, I think if the Democrats are hoping that this video will change the opinion polls or change the outcome of the election, I think they're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, Steve, we can see Donald Trump there peeling off what looks like $100 bills from a large wad of cash in his golfing trousers there, seeming very much just like an ordinary guy having a round of golf. And as we said before, not the first time this has been tried, of course, the undercover sting in 2016, Steve Edgington, right before polling day then, used language, what he'd like to do to women. That didn't work that time around, and I'm hearing from your tone, Steve, that this won't have much of an impact either.
I don't think this tape can even compare at all with what happened with the Access Hollywood tape in 2016. That was totally different context. The comments or the words that he used back in 2016 were widely seen as misogynistic and, you know, even promoting sexual assault. Certainly that was the Democrat interpretation of what he said. And he did apologize for those comments at the time. This video, he's merely criticizing President Biden and Kamala Harris, his two political opponents. Okay, he uses a swear word. Who doesn't swear, you know, when they don't think they're being recorded in a private video? You say he looks like an ordinary guy. I mean, I suppose a lot of people in America do golf. They love golf. You know, he's a rich man. He has lots of $100 bills. He's tipping someone. I think it's quite mean of the person to have secretly recorded Trump. It seems like a more kind of human moment. He seems like he can't go anywhere without speculation or without, you know, he's got a very, very odd life. So for him to have one private moment recorded like this might seem a little, unsatisfactory for some. But I don't think this video is going to change the election very much. I think what people are focusing on is Joe Biden. Trump, weirdly, has been very silent. He hasn't chosen his VP. He isn't saying very much at the moment. He is letting the Democrats tear themselves apart. He's seeing all of this press speculation about Joe Biden's health following his debate, whether he will be the Democratic candidate. And I think Trump, for once, and I think this is absolutely extraordinary, is he's closed his mouth. He's letting his enemies make their own mistakes. And many people think that Trump has learned from his own mistakes in 2020 and 2016, frankly, when he simply loved the limelight. And when the Democrats seemed to be making mistakes, sometimes he would just tweet something or he would cause some outrage and all the media attention would go back onto him. But now, and I know this video, we're talking about this video, but as I said, I don't think it's particularly significant. Now, Trump is remaining quiet. He's letting the Democrats tear themselves apart on the national media. And what you have is the liberal media in the US, which is normally so loyal to the Democrats and to President Biden. They're beginning to criticize Biden. They're beginning to admit that Biden's health isn't quite what they said it was even weeks ago. So I think it's a really interesting time in US politics right now.
Yeah, Steve Edgington, you're right. I mean, in that last debate, the attack video that Donald Trump himself put out didn't feature anything that Donald Trump said. It was just a montage of all of those brain freezers, all of those toe-curling moments from Joe Biden. And that brings us on, Steve, to this televised event coming up tomorrow. Not quite the same format. It won't go out live. It won't be as heavily scrutinised. I think you said to us earlier, it will be edited. Nevertheless, the supportive media, the Democratic machine, and of course, the hostile media, the entire world will be watching every single moment. How big is the pressure on Joe Biden right now, and do you think he can get through this?
The pressure is absolutely immense. You cannot underestimate how much pressure the president is under right now. I think this interview tomorrow, as you say, it's in a much more controlled environment. I think his aides probably wouldn't let him do this interview if they didn't think he could handle it. I'm sure he'll probably just about muddle through. But I think, does it really matter one interview when we've seen 90 minutes of President Biden in that debate last week where he couldn't finish sentences? Sometimes he would say words that just didn't make any sense. And Trump absolutely pounced on that. And what you have to remember is there's actually going to be a second debate, all things being equal, in September. And can Biden, after months of campaigning, presumably he, his schedule is pretty light if you ask the White House, but can he handle another 90-minute debate against Trump in September? These are the questions the Democrats will be asking as we go into this weekend. And I think many, many Democrats are thinking, this cannot be our candidate. Not only can he not perform in debates, can he be the president for the next 4 years when he's this old and he's showing so many signs of mental decline? So I think President Biden, he really is under a lot of pressure. His team around him will want to stay. They will want to keep Biden there. That's their power base, of course. A lot of focus has been on his wife, Jill Biden. She seems to be someone who has a lot of power in the White House, has a lot of power over her husband. And if she decides it's time for him to give up the game, perhaps he will. So I think a lot of it hinges on what she thinks, on what his family thinks, and what his close aides think. And they've personally, or they themselves, have been very, very insistent that Biden is not dropping out. The White House have put out statements time and again denying any reports that Biden is even considering leaving the race. They are totally insistent that that's not going to happen. But the speculation here in America is only rising. And as I said, the liberal media are even speculating over this. So I think when you lose the media, you're starting to lose your big donors. You're starting to lose your base of supporters. So I think President Biden, he's really, really going to have to make a very careful decision in the next few days. And the pressure will only continue to mount.
Steve Eddington, GB News' US correspondent, live from DC. Excellent summary as ever, and no doubt we'll have much, much more of this ahead of that massive, massive night on November the 5th. Now let's talk more on this and get some more reaction from the political commentator Eric Ham. Eric, welcome to the show. Always a pleasure to have your company. The world's media, the entire world, will be watching every move, every word, every expression of Joe Biden in this next TV interview after what's collectively been recognised as a totally disastrous debate with Donald Trump. Eric Ham, the big question is, can Joe Biden this time finally deliver?
Well, even if he does, it's not going to mean much because we're talking just a one-off event. There needs to be a series of events where Joe Biden is not just doing a one-on-one interview, but he's got to actually get out and talk to the press. And he also has to get out and do more rallies and do more town halls with the voters themselves. This is a problem that has dogged Joe Biden since he won election in 2020. Now issues have been confirmed after watching that debate surrounding his age, and the job and the work for him just got much, much more difficult, because now he has to try to assuage those fears when so many people have already had these concerns about him. And look, here's where this becomes, I think, very different, because in 2020, we have to remember, we were in a once-in-a-generation pandemic. Joe Biden was able to campaign from his basement. He wasn't the commander-in-chief back then. Now he has to do the job of president, all the while putting forward a vigorous campaign against a wholly, wildly, and very able opponent, and he has to do it at the age of 81 years old. That's enormously difficult. And now, on top of what just happened in this debate less than a week ago, it just became even more difficult for the president going forward.
And Eric Ham, what's astonishing is when you directly compare Joe Biden's performance in those 2020 debates, when he was sharp, he was cognitive, he was heavy on detail, he was bang on the money, compared to what we saw the other week. The difference is very, very stark. Eric Ham, a lot of people who criticise Joe Biden, his opponents have been saying this for a long time. They've been shouted down. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing to see here. But the other night, we seem to have an awakening from within Joe Biden's own camp, from within his own supported media. The New York Times asking him to stand aside. This is an astonishing development.
Look, I have this saying, you get ready by staying ready. And what we saw when Joe Biden came in office, we saw a complete disdain for the stagecraft and optics of the presidency. We saw him eschew his basic duties of engaging with the press, using that as a tool to engage with the people. And now we see getting on that debate stage while he talks about, and his staff talks about, the prep that they did with him. Clearly, it wasn't enough. And also, it seemed as though it was perhaps maybe too overwhelming for an 81-year-old man. But we're talking about an 81-year-old man who, over the last 3.5 years, while has certainly had a consequential presidency, did very little in terms of the stagecraft and optics of constantly engaging voters and the American people through communications and press. We're talking about a president who every weekend would go home to Delaware, even during the Afghanistan withdrawal when things simply blew up. I was in the White House covering it as it was happening in real time, and the president was away in Delaware, and much of his staff was gone as well. And so when you have a president and a presidency with a culture that does not value the stagecraft and the optics that come with it, you get what we saw play out on Thursday. An administration that does not value the optics of what a debate will mean, even as the world is watching, because they don't know or believe this president can actually do the job based on his age and his fitness.
And Eric, that brings us neatly to this latest video, this expose of Donald Trump on his golf cart, dishing out dollar bills to a member of the public, a caddy, laying into Joe Biden, laying into Kamala Harris in typically floral and fruity language, the kind of unfiltered Donald Trump we've kind of got a bit used to. So I guess my next question is, Eric Ham in 2016 and leaked undercover audio attempted to derail the entire Trump campaign when he talked disparagingly of what he'd like to do to women. The Biden team would hope that this video would cause some damage. Do you think that this will have any traction, any resonance? Because Donald Trump himself has tweeted this out. He seems quite pleased with it.
Look, this is a man who has been convicted of 34 felony counts and is the challenger and the nominee for the Republican Party for president of the White House. This is not going to damage Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form. In fact, this is who we all thought and knew Donald Trump to be. So this is not going to change minds. This is not going to shape hearts. This is just Donald Trump being Donald Trump. And of course he will stand by it. And I expect that he would, because this only just shows and bolsters Donald Trump for being who he is with his base of support.
Eric Ham, absolutely fascinating stuff. Brilliant insight, as ever. Thank you very much. No doubt we're speaking to you much more ahead of the greatest political night on earth. November the 5th, that's when they go to the polls in America. Now, you get lots more on the US presidential race, beg your pardon, of course, on our website. And thanks to you, GBNews.com is the fastest growing national news website in the country. It's got breaking news and all of the brilliant analysis you come to expect from us here at GB News. So thank you very much. Now it's time now for the Great British Giveaway, and it's an absolute stonker. It's the chance to win a whopping £30,000 in cash, tax-free. It's our biggest prize to date, and here's how you could win the lot.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For a chance to win £30,000 £60,000 in tax-free cash? Text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, more than 60,000 people have signed a petition in protest at Prince Harry receiving an award in the United States. We'll have more on that soon. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have said stump. You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere. Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
So the royal family is opening the doors of Balmoral Castle to the public and giving guided tours today for the first time in more than 170 years.
And one man who spent plenty of time there is former royal butler Grant Harold, who joins us now. Grant, we know the Queen loved Balmoral, and that's, of course, where she was in her final days. Why was it so special?
I think for many reasons, but most importantly, it was a family home, and it's where she spent a lot of time with her family. I mean, we all know the Queen, obviously monarchy was the first thing, but she always said that family was right behind that. And so time with family was important, whether it be at Sandringham or Balmoral, which were both properties that she privately owned. So they're private homes and very special.
Which kind of makes it even more surprising that King Charles has decided to open the doors to the public.
I was surprised when it was announced because for many years, I've always said that Balmoral's one of the most private homes. You know, they've always been quite fierce about keeping a private home, private estate. You can visit the gardens at certain times of the year. You can see the ballroom as well. But to actually go in the rooms is really a big step for them. And I think it just shows you that the kind of future of the monarchy with properties is opening the doors and letting the public in to see them.
Yeah. You had a very special occasion in that ballroom because you saw a film in there, but I'm actually interested by who you danced with in that ballroom.
In the film that I watched, the documentary, it was the Queen dancing, and I remember thinking I would love to dance with the Queen. And about 12 years later, I was in that ballroom and got to dance with her in that room. So
that's fabulous.
It was quite...
Was she in her full tartan regalia?
She was in a beautiful dress. She had a blue dress on, which similar to what she wore in the documentary that I saw. And they actually replicated the scene in The Crown. Right. I was very disappointed to see that Brad Pitt wasn't playing my sadly.
How unfair.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 22 minutes past 5. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, a former teacher has been jailed for 6.5 years after being convicted on 6 counts of engaging in sexual activity with a child. The judge told Rebecca Joynes that there had been a breathtaking arrogance in her conduct and she had exploited the privileged role for her own sexual gratification. Well, GB News' north-west of England reporter Sophie Reaper has this story.
You are under arrest at the moment on suspicion of sexual activity with a child.
A maths teacher at a school in Greater Manchester, Rebecca Joynes was in a position of trust, a position of power. She chose to abuse that power. In May, a jury at Manchester Crown Court heard details of how she had groomed 2 teenage boys in her class. The first of which, boy A, she took shopping and bought him a belt worth £350. She then took him back to her flat, where they had sex twice. Joins denied it, but his semen was later recovered from her bedsheets. The jury later heard that while suspended from her job, Joins then began a sexual relationship with another teen, Boy B. She would go on to become pregnant with the 16-year-old. In a letter to the teenager, she said, "Every inch of you is perfect. You are all I ever dream about." The jury ultimately found Joins guilty on 6 counts of sexual activity with a child, 2 of which whilst in a position of power.
Rebecca Joins is a sexual predator. She was their teacher and they rightfully put their trust in her. But Joins decided to abuse her position and used it to groom 2 teenagers. We now wait for Joins to face the consequences of her actions.
Sophie Reaper, GB News.
Rebecca Joins jailed for 6.5 years. Now to the latest on Prince Harry and the backlash against the decision to give him a hugely prestigious award for veterans in the United States is growing apace. Harry's in line to receive the Pat Tillman Award from American sports broadcaster ESPN for his work with the Invictus Games. But more than 60,000 people now have signed a petition calling on them to rethink that decision. Well, I'm joined now by the Royal commentator, Michael Cole. Michael, what a delight it is to see you. Can you set out for GB News viewers what this award is about, how it was founded, and therefore why it's causing such a stir?
Indeed. Good afternoon, Martin. Yes, more signatures are being added to this petition all the time, and Prince Harry might be well advised not to go and accept it in person for fear of being booed. But as the awards ceremony is being presented by Serena Williams, who is a big pal of his wife, Meghan Markle, perhaps he'll be under wifely orders to go there and accept. But it is controversial for this reason. Pat Tillman, after whom the award is named, was a footballer, American footballer, and he passed up, he refused a £3 million contract to play the sport he loved, to join the military after 9/11. And tragically, he was killed in Afghanistan. Sadly, it was friendly fire. He was killed by his own side during an ambush action. But he received the Silver Star and got a Purple Heart after that. And he is a genuine American war hero. Now, this award is in his name by ESPN, the sports network, but many Americans who have a great respect for the British royal family and the late Queen in particular, and the Prince and Princess of Wales, don't like it going to Prince Harry because they say he's controversial and divisive. And the lead on this has been taken by Pat Tillman's mother. She says she doesn't want Prince Harry to have the award that bears her heroic son's name. That's what it all comes down to. Discretion is the better part of valour. And were I giving Prince Harry advice in that unlikely event, I would say to him, this is an occasion when you ought to politely decline. Actions have consequences. And of course, we can highly commend him for his service 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan, 1 as the commander of an Apache attack helicopter. And we can applaud the establishment of the Invictus Games, Invictus meaning unconquered. And he based that on the American Warrior Games. Of course, we can applaud those things. But in the book he wrote, Spare, or it was written for him by a ghostwriter, J.A. Moeringer, he says a lot of things that the military didn't like, and he also very, very unwisely admitted to killing 25 Taliban in Afghanistan, thereby painting a target on his own back for the rest of his life and that of his family. So they don't want him. It's a question for him now, but he has to reflect on the fact that actions have consequences, and this is one of the consequences.
And Michael Cole, it's not the first time that the Prince has fallen foul of the wrath of the US veterans, because in April, you recall, we covered a story then. He presented a Soldier of the Year award from the porch of his mansion, wearing British Army medals to a US combat medic, Sergeant First Class Elizabeth Marks. And a lot of people then were saying Prince Harry has no right to be presenting awards to US veterans. US veterans take these kind of things incredibly seriously. They are massively, massively patriotic. Is there a feeling here, Michael Cole, that once again Prince Harry is being used as a public relations exercise, as a tawdry way of gaining audience, and that has no place when it comes to veteran communities?
Absolutely. I mean, you summed it up right. There's no more patriotic nation on earth. And there were questions about whether he should have done it and whether he should have worn his medals in the way that he did at that particular time. And there seems to be a suggestion, not coming from me, but a suggestion which is being believed by people, that this is an attempt just by SPN to boost its ratings, to create a bit of controversy, to create a bit of interest, and to get more people looking in. Well, they've succeeded in the sense that we are devoting our time to this, but I would like to use this few minutes just to say to Harry, think of what you're doing, think of your personal profile, think of all the goodwill and the affection you had in this country when you served this country well. All of those things, of course, the service in Afghanistan and the setting up of Invictus, which he did with the support of his brother, Prince William, it might be added. All of those things happened pre-Meghan Markle, before his wedding in 2017, and very much pre his decision to go into self-imposed exile in California. And we can only regret of what's been lost. And I understand that he also regrets things about not being in Britain, and he misses the way we do things in this country.
And I think it's no better way of summing it up, Michael Cole, when you look to the words of Pat Tillman's mother, Mary, who quite simply said there are recipients that are far more fitting of my son's award. There are individuals working in the veteran community that are doing tremendous things to assist veterans. These individuals do not have the money, the resources, connections, or the privilege that Prince Harry has. I feel that those types of individuals should be recognised, and she rounded off by calling Prince Harry a controversial and divisive individual. Michael Cole, I think you're absolutely right. This is one publicity stunt too far. I think this has massively backfired. Michael Cole, it's always a tremendous pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much for joining us, as ever. That's Michael Cole. Now, there's lots more still to come between now and 6 o'clock. I'll speak to the man with the brilliant title of the Snail Master ahead of Saturday's unmissable World Snail Racing Championships. Be fast, or you might miss it. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
The headlines this hour: Holly Willoughby has thanked the undercover United States police officer who helped foil a kidnap plot against her. In a statement, the television presenter said women should not be made to feel unsafe going about their lives or in their own homes. It comes after security guard Gavin Plum was found guilty of planning to kidnap and murder the TV star. He's due to be sentenced on the 12th of July. Meanwhile, a former schoolteacher has been jailed for 6.5 years for engaging in sexual activity with a child. Rebecca Joynes, who's 30, had sex with 2 teenage schoolboys after grooming them from the age of 15. She was on bail for one offence when she committed another with another boy. And a woman has admitted to murdering both her parents, who are in their mid-70s. The bodies of John and Lois McCulloch were discovered by police at their daughter's house after concerns were raised about their welfare. Virginia McCulloch, who's 36, pleaded guilty today before being remanded in custody. And have you been to vote yet? Polls are still open across Britain as millions cast their vote to choose the next government. They're open till 10 o'clock tonight. But don't forget to take photo ID. It's the first general election where voters are being reminded to bring a driving licence, a passport or other photo ID, or being risked turned away. And in the United States, President Biden will attempt to reassure key allies that he can win November's election when he attends today's Independence Day events across the United States. It comes after he met with state governors from his Democratic Party last night who insist he is fit for office and has their backing. That's the headlines. I'm Polly Middlehurst. I'm back in half an hour with more. See you then.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Before I go, a quick look at the numbers for you. The pound buying you $1.2762 and €1.1803 euros. The price of gold is £1,848.39 an ounce. And the FTSE 100 has closed for the day today at 8,241 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Polly. Now, if you want to get in touch with us here at GB News, simply go to gbnews.com/your say, and I'll read out the best of your messages a little later in the show. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. The rest of the day will stay windy across northern areas, a few showers still to come, but later we'll see some rain arriving into the southwest. That's because this string of weather fronts is arriving, and that's really going to take centre stage as we head into Friday. So Friday is looking a bit wetter for southern areas, but through the rest of this evening it should stay dry across eastern areas. The showers will tend to ease and the winds will die out a little, though it does remain breezy and pretty unsettled across the far west of Scotland. Now, through the night, this area of rain will move into many southern counties, a lot of cloud with it and some fairly muggy air as well. So a fairly warm night tonight away from any clearer skies across parts of Northern Ireland and northern England. And here there will be some sunshine to start the day on Friday. And actually Friday will be a bit of a drier and brighter day for many northern areas compared to today at least. The winds will be a little bit lighter. Still quite a lot of cloud around for much of Scotland first thing tomorrow, but it should brighten up a little bit later on in the day. And much of Northern Ireland, northern areas of England, particularly northeastern England, could see a fairly bright start. Very different story though for central and southern areas. The rain will come and go through the day, particularly across the south coast, but the Midlands, parts of Mid Wales as well, could see some of that rain through the day. So this band of rain will wiggle and wave through the day. There will be some drier weather to be had though across northern areas of Wales, the northern slice of England as well. And in that sunshine, it won't feel too bad. The winds will be lighter tomorrow, as I said, and there'll be fewer showers across northwestern areas of Scotland, so highs into the higher teens across parts of eastern Scotland to come tomorrow. Looking ahead to Friday evening, after a slightly drier spell, some heavier rain will push into southwestern areas of England, South Wales, possibly the Midlands as well. That could take a little while to clear the east coast through Saturday morning, and then we're into sunshine and showers for the weekend. Temperatures still a little bit below par for the time of year.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Johnny Ratner. There are long residual delays down the M1 through South Yorkshire after a car broke down just after junction 31, the A57 exit for Sheffield. On the M42 on the Warwickshire-Staffordshire border, long queues, the outside lane of 2 closed southbound 10 to 9 Tamworth to Coles Hill, where a lorry's broken down. And not far from there on the M6 northbound, 2 lanes are blocked off 5 to 6 Castle Bromwich to Spaghetti towards Birmingham, where a lorry's broken down. Long queues down the M5 through Somerset towards Bridgewater after an earlier incident. All lanes are back open. It's still queuing back to the Sedgemoor services. And in Powys, northeast of Newtown, the A483 shut in Abermule and Garth Mill for emergency water main repairs. And transport for Wales trains are suspended from Llandrindod through to Knighton because of a line-side fire. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 5:37. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, in a heart-wrenching admission, a mother has confessed to giving her terminally ill 7-year-old son a dose of morphine that she said quietly ended his life. Hamish Cooper, who had been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, died in 1981. And police are now investigating the case amid ongoing debates about assisted dying laws. Well, joining me now to discuss this hugely emotive topic is the CEO of Humanists Against Assisted Suicide and Euthanasia, Professor Kevin Yuill. Kevin, welcome to the show. There are cases every now and then that make you question everything you deem to be normal, to be moral, to be showing of mercy. This case is one of them, and that's why I wanted to discuss it with you today. A child, a 7-year-old child in incredible pain with an incurable cancer, stage 4 cancer. The mother decided via the medication he was already having, he had a catheter, to give him a life-ending shot of morphine after she claims a conversation where she said he was expressing that the pain he had wouldn't go away. Would you like me to take that pain away? He said, yes, please, mama. And so I gave him a dose of morphine through his Hickman catheter that quietly ended his life. It's a complex case. What's your take on this, Kevin?
Well, I mean, first of all, my heart goes out to the poor woman. I mean, what an awful situation to have to deal with. And I don't think there's any great point in prosecuting the woman now, 43 years after the time. And I understand that she's also very ill with stage 4 cancer. I think it's a terrible situation, but it has no implications really for changing the law, which I would be opposed to. I think, first of all, this case would be legal nowhere in the world, including the most liberal areas where assisted dying is legal. Even in Belgium and the Netherlands, where they do euthanize children, it's done by a doctor. It must be done through a large series of inquiries, medical inquiries, etc. So this wouldn't be legal anywhere. And much more than that, it shows some of the pitfalls of legalization, because, of course, did this child consent? It's very, very difficult to say. The mother says he did, but I don't think a child of 7 can consent to either having sex or being murdered or being killed. But forget murdered, that's perhaps the wrong word, but being killed in any way. I just don't think that's, if you're talking about autonomy as being important in assisted dying / assisted suicide laws, then I think, this case can't be included in that. So it shows a lot of the pitfalls of very complex and intricate and problematic kind of attempt at legalization.
And yet, Kevin, it seems that the direction of travel globally, at least in Western liberal nations, is to have more of a conversation now about moving towards assisted dying, towards euthanasia. Of course, Dame Esther Rantzen, we had a debate recently in Britain. Is this something you think that will come increasingly on the cards? And OK, this case is atypical. This isn't going through due process. This isn't involving one or more doctors. This isn't getting a proper diagnosis. This was a mother taking the law into her own hands. She admits that. And for that, she may well be prosecuted. Although, as you say, she now herself has terminal cancer. So she says they'd better be quick if they want to take me because I'm dying too. It's an astonishing, atypical case. But in the instance where more of us are living longer, more of us will live with pain or dementia for longer, do you think that the direction of travel is that we will have that conversation about assisted dying, or is that something that you would like to see resisted?
Well, first of all, I would like to see it resisted. And second, it is being resisted. So, for instance, New York has recently turned down assisted suicide. This is not like gay marriage. It is not swept like wildfire across the world. It's something that I think we should have a conversation about it. And I think people, when they consider it, will see that these terrible cases are one thing. They are individual cases and should be dealt with in an individual sense. Whereas on the other hand, you have a very complex law that tends to expand criteria, and in every country of the world. And the most egregious is my own native Canada, where I was born, where the law was passed in 2016, and now it's increased every year, and more people. They've taken away the terminal illness aspect of it, and they are planning in 2027 to extend it to people with mental illness only. And this is the problem with this kind of this kind of legislation. It in some ways it's fine in principle, but in practice it proves very, very problematic.
You know, Kevin, I'm just trying to put myself in the position, and I get very emotional about these kind of things. I'm trying to put myself in the position of a parent. You know, you would die for your child. You know, people often say, would you take a bullet for your child? Would you press a button to end your own life so your child could survive? And many, many parents would say, yes, I would. In this circumstances, in this instant where the illness is incurable, the pain is insufferable, if there were a proper process to go through, if there were getting doctors to assess, if they were saying, yeah, there is no way out of this, this child can only have unending pain, do you not see that a lot of parents, maybe with all of the boxes ticked, with all the efficacy, with all of the correct hopes jumped through, that this is something that some people might want?
I suspect some people would want it, but again, I would insist on the individual cases being very distinct from the implications of a change in the law. We can forgive people in certain circumstances. And as you say, I have children, and I can understand that I would want to die before my children die. That's, we are all parents, I think, have that kind of wish. And in this situation, obviously, you would treat people with respect and with sympathy. It's just a change in the law that I think is very, very problematic. And the evidence is all across the places where it's been legalized. And in the Netherlands, for instance, where children can be euthanized and are euthanized, I don't think the direction of travel is the right one. And I think the best way to prevent this is to not legalize it in the first place and to continue to treat, as we do in this country, people in invidious circumstances in a very kind and sympathetic way, whilst keeping the law as a general sort of prevention.
OK, Professor Kevin Newell, who's the CEO of Humanists Against Assisted Suicide and Euthanasia, thank you for helping me to make some sense of a very, very complicated situation. I know it's difficult, but I just thought it was an important conversation to have. Thank you very much. Now, a change of pace now. On the way, ready, steady, slow. Yes, we're discussing the unmissable snail racing World Championships set to take place in Norfolk on Saturday. And my guest will be coming out of their shell to tell us all about this. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back. Stefan Kyriazis has, as ever, been to the theatre and saw one of the most successful performers of the modern age, one who has made his name in different genres on television and is always a magnetic presence on the stage. About whom are we talking, Stefan?
We're talking about James Corden at the Old Vic for The Constituent and its Traverse staging. So audience on either side, and it's a fantastic experience. But also it's been done this time to bring everything in a lot and make it quite intimate, because you just have one simple set. It's just a table, office space. This is a new play by Joe Penhall, and it's addressing very, very current issues of safety, especially for people in public service, doctors, nurses, teachers, and of course, as you know, politicians that are at risk and being attacked. So we have Joe Cox, Sir David Ames, and we have politicians talking about cancelling their surgeries, not wanting to appear in public, teachers being threatened. And James Corden plays an ex-serviceman who is going through a difficult divorce, dealing with a lot of PTSD, also feeling very much like fathers are overlooked, and he wants to fight for their rights. And an old school friend is a local MP, played by Anna Maxwell Martin. And he goes in to start talking to her, and it starts off quite chummy and jovial, and then it darkens and darkens. He gets quite aggressive and frustrated. She wants to help. She's an absolute idealist. This politician sense of we don't choose who we work for. You know, we are here by duty to work for everybody in our constituency. It spirals a lot. I have to say, Corden, sensational. Really? He really is a fantastic actor. Of all of them, he's so natural, and he has the most difficult role where his character is shifting all the time and becomes potentially quite threatening and dangerous, but then there's also a beautiful catharsis at the end.
The People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have said stump. You made my argument for me. My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 5:48. We're on the final furlong. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now to England's simply massive Euro 2024 quarter-final clash with Switzerland on Saturday. Now, we're still waiting to find out whether Jude Bellingham will be available for that clash, that epic clash, do or die time. His crude gesture after scoring against Slovakia last weekend is still being investigated by the football authorities, and that's the last thing that we need hanging over us. Now, England have been widely criticised for their performances so far, and some might say with some justification, but they're still joint favourites with the bookmakers to lift that trophy. And defender John Stones had a very simple answer when he was asked what England's aim for was this tournament earlier.
To win. I think it's the biggest thrill for me and that I can get out of playing. You know, that winning feeling, to create history for us as a nation, you know, for everyone back home. Me personally and the lads, to do something that's never been done before and lift this trophy. I kind of simplify it down into, you know, all those little things that I've just said, and trying to create our own history and make something happen. And that comes with all the trophies that I've won previously in my career, and trying to bring those attributes to the team, that hunger. And the things that I spoke to you about before, the things that you can't really coach or learn, it's almost, you're just born with it, that come around winning a football game or going that extra yard to try and make this happen. That's the dream, that's the belief that I definitely have.
Well, certainly to find our Stones before 5 o'clock on Saturday. This is it. Now, we've already covered the Euros and Wimbledon on this show today, but if you prefer your sport at a slightly slower pace, then I've got just the event for you, because the Snail Racing World Championships take place in the village of Congham in Norfolk on Saturday. Now, GB News viewers can see now the highlights. No, it's not in slow motion. These are the highlights from last year when a snail called Evie became the world champion. Evie completed the 13-inch course in a leisurely 7 minutes and 24 seconds. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm now joined by Nicholas Dickinson, who has the magnificent title of the Snail Master. What a title, Nicholas. Thank you very much for joining us. What a beautiful, eccentric British event. Tell us more about it. Where was it founded? How long has it been going on for? How can you enter? And how exciting is this leisurely event going to be?
Good evening, Martin. Yes, we're very excited. The event's been going on for over half a century, and this year's competition will be the 54th World Championship. It was first brought to the UK by a chap called Tom Elwes, who was a Congham resident, who visited France in the 1960s and witnessed the snail racing competition there. He thought it was so wonderful that he brought the idea back to Congham, and it's been held in the grounds of Congham Hall ever since. We as a slight point of differentiation, I should point out that we differentiate ourselves from the French event by the fact that we look after our snails, whereas the French, at the end of the racing, they eat them all apart from the lucky winner.
Yeah, I was about to make that national stereotype, but it's true. I was about to say that they probably rescued those snails from France to bring them back to Blyth to avoid them going into the pot with a bit of garlic butter. And I was right. Sometimes these stereotypes are true. But back to the serious business of the race itself. Nicholas, tell us, what's the record time for this mighty event?
So the record time, which is in Guinness World Records, has stood since 1995, when Snail Archie competed the 13.5-inch course in a record time of 2 minutes. So you can imagine the 7.5 minutes last year. It was a very slow race last year, slow conditions. But yeah, 2 minutes is the time to beat.
So I'm assuming the ideal conditions where it's a bit drizzly, it's a bit damp, because we all know snails go crazy when the weather turns a bit inclement.
Yeah, we're hoping for those sort of conditions tomorrow. It's rather schizophrenic, because I'd like it to be nice and sunny so it'll attract a lot of spectators. But ideally for the racing, we want it to be sort of a bit cooler and slightly drizzly.
Beautiful. Well, there you go. Snails pace action, nice and drizzly. Couple of beers afterwards. Nicholas Dickinson, the Snail Master. I'm just happy to have met a Snail Master. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Now, next up is Jubes & Co. and tonight presented by Bev Turner. Thanks for joining me today. Normal service will be resumed tomorrow when our election coverage will recommence. We'll be able to talk about the election then. Now, if you haven't voted like me, I'm off to vote in a minute. Make sure you take your photo ID, because they will turn you away. Thanks for joining me. See you tomorrow. And that's your weather with Annie Shuttleworth. Have a great evening.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update, brought to you from the Met Office. The rest of the day will stay windy across northern areas, a few showers still to come, but later we'll see some rain arriving into the southwest. That's because this string of weather fronts is arriving, and that's really going to take centre stage as we head into Friday. So Friday is looking a bit wetter for southern areas, but through the rest of this evening it should stay dry across eastern areas. The showers will tend to ease and the winds will die out a little, though it does remain breezy and pretty unsettled across the far west of Scotland. Now, through the night, this area of rain will move into many southern counties, a lot of cloud with it and some fairly muggy air as well. So a fairly warm night tonight, away from any clearer skies across parts of Northern Ireland and northern England. And here there will be some sunshine to start the day on Friday. And actually Friday will be a bit of a drier and brighter day for many northern areas compared to today, at least. The winds will be a little bit lighter. Still quite a lot of cloud around for much of Scotland first thing tomorrow, but it should brighten up a little bit later on in the day. And much of Northern Ireland, northern areas of England, particularly northeastern England, could see a fairly bright start. A very different story though for central and southern areas. The rain will come and go through the day, particularly across the south coast, but the Midlands, parts of Mid Wales as well, could see some of that rain through the day. So this band of rain will wiggle and wave through the day. There will be some drier weather to be had though across northern areas of Wales, northern slice of England as well. And in that sunshine, it won't feel too bad. The winds will be lighter tomorrow, as I said, and there'll be fewer showers across northwestern areas of Scotland, so highs into the higher teens across parts of eastern Scotland to come tomorrow. Looking ahead to Friday evening, after a slightly drier spell, some heavier rain will push into southwestern areas of England, South Wales, and possibly the Midlands as well. That could take a little while to clear the east coast through Saturday morning, and then we're into sunshine and showers for the weekend. Temperatures still a little bit below par for the time of year.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Problems along two stretches of the M6. A lane is closed southbound 19 to 18, Knutsford to Middlewich, where a lorry's broken down. And further south, heading north towards Birmingham, the inside lane's closed where a lorry's broken down 5 to 6 just south of Spaghetti Junction. In Cambridgeshire, the A14 is down to a single lane eastbound from Bar Hill to the M11 northwest of Cambridge after a car overturned. In Bedfordshire, the A6 at Luton is blocked by a collision involving a motorbike. In West London, the Twickenham Road at Hanworth is closed at Apex Corner for a police investigation. And on the M4, heading west just north of